Chapter 1041. The Sword Dynasty was a kingdom of sword cultivators in the South Horizon region. It could be said that it was the best home for sword cultivators apart from those overlord-level forces. The entire Sword Dynasty's sword cultivators were very united. Unfortunately, due to the perennial hostility between the rogue cultivators and the aristocratic families, as well as the proud divine continent being trapped, the Sword Dynasty was in turmoil. This also made the War God Dynasty, the Maluo Dynasty, the Tyrannical Saber Dynasty, and the other second, third, and fourth dynasties see an opportunity. The sage fruit that might exist in the Sacred Dynasty's treasure trove was a supreme treasure that all the dynasties must fight for. A single saintly Dao fruit could create a heavenly tribulation saint. A tribulation sage was the standard for an overlord-level force. Although a tribulation sage was not enough to make a dynasty reach the level of an overlord-level force. But at least it would be able to sit firmly on the throne of the 100 great dynasties. Therefore, this time, heavenly love placed her hopes in the hands of the prodigies. This trip to the 1,000 Demon Nest is not only important for the Sword Sun battle, but also for the glory of the Sword Dynasty. Heavenly Love said, "We will not disappoint the Vice Alliance leader." Hearing Heavenly Love's words, all the prodigies present, including the sword-ranking prodigies and the 13 Sword Sons, cupped their hands and shouted loudly. Yiguchen also cupped his hands slightly. As a sword cultivator, he naturally hoped that the Sword Dynasty could sit firmly on the throne of the First Dynasty. However, Yiguchen's deep eyes swept across Jinkue, Hua Wuxiu, and the other prodigies of the aristocratic families. Yiguchen might consider the overall situation of the Sword Dynasty, but it was hard to say whether Hua Wuxiu and the others would do the same. After all, Ouyang Fengyun did not care about the overall situation at the ancient Chaos Wasteland and attacked him, which caused the Sword Dynasty to lose a fragment of the Sacred Dynasty's treasure trove. But this time, Yiguchen obviously would not show any mercy. If Ouyang Fengyun and the others did not care about the overall situation, then he did not mind using thunderous means. All right, everyone, prepare yourselves. 3 days later, we will head to the Myriad Demon's Nest. Heaven Feeling waved her hand and said, after that, the 5 great academies, the various aristocratic families, and the rogue cultivators all went their own way. There were a total of 10 false saints heading to the Myriad Demon's Nest, other than Vice Alliance leader Yi Tianqing. On the rogue cultivator's side, there were Confuzi, Wu Hongyan, and a rogue cultivator false saint named Gu Yuanxi. Other than that, the other 6 were false saints from the aristocratic families. In addition to Hua Yuntao, there was another false saint in the Hua family, Hua Yunhai, who was a highest elder of the Hua family. The others were the head of the Shangguan family, Shangguan Bo, the deputy head of the Jiang family, Jiang Wu, the first elder of the Yin family, Yin Lengshan, and the elder of the Ouyang family, Ouyang Su. Apart from Hua Yunhai, the other 5 false saints of the aristocratic families had all appeared at Mount Saint Crossing. Of course, this was not all of the experts of the 5 fake saint families. It was only a part of them, but it also showed how deep the foundation of the experts of the fake saint families were. As expected of the Sword Dynasty, they can easily dispatch 10 false saints, but unfortunately, Yiguchen sighed in his heart. The foundation of the experts of the Sword Dynasty was indeed second to none, but there was internal division, which caused turmoil. Now, Yiguchen understood why Yi Tianqing was trying to rescue the proud divine state. Only by rescuing the proud divine state could they expel the disloyal ones, reorganize the Sword Way Alliance, and unite them. However, before going to the Heavenless Sword Realm to rescue the proud divine state, Yiguchen had to first obtain the identity of the Sword Sun. 3 days passed quickly. On this day, the Sword Dynasty's fleet, led by Yi Tianqing and the other false saints, sailed toward the direction of the Demon's Nest in a mighty manner, looking quite imposing. Almost at the same time, the War God Dynasty, the Maluo Dynasty, and the Tyrannical Saber Dynasty all had their own fleet rising into the sky and sailing toward the Myriad Demon's Nest. Each team was led by several false saint experts. In addition, there were many venerables in the Celestial Palace. Of course, there were also many monstrous geniuses from each dynasty. After all, this time, the geniuses of the Sword Dynasty were almost all out, and the other three dynasties naturally could not send any Tom, Dick, or Harry. In a wasteland in the tyrannical Saber Dynasty, a young man in dusty clothes, holding a blood-stained ancient saber, stood indifferently in the same place. The young man's face was ordinary, and his hair was messy like wormwood, and his beard was unshaven. He looked a little sloppy. His eyes seemed to have lost all emotion and were lifeless. If Yi Guchen was here, he would definitely recognize this young man. It was the saber maniac who had fought with him on the peak of the Forbidden City, Gu Zun. No, now he should be called the Seven Lethal Saber Demon, Gu Zun. After killing his master, Gu Zun's only emotion was also lost. He was like a walking corpse, wandering all the way to the tyrannical Saber Dynasty. Originally, Gu Zun had an obsession. It was to use the seven lethal ancient saber to end Yi Guchen's life. For this obsession, Gu Zun challenged and tempered himself day and night in the tyrannical Saber Dynasty. Later on, news of Yi Guchen's death spread. Not only did Gu Zun not feel relieved, but it made him even more miserable. What Gu Zun wanted was to personally end Yi Guchen. But now it was impossible. Yi Guchen, how can you die? How hateful! Gu Zun slashed out with his saber, and the surging saber chi almost split the ground in half. At this moment, a flying boat appeared in the void. On the flying boat stood a handsome man in white with a long crystal saber on his back. He had an extraordinary aura. It was young Master Fuxing, Dao Wuming, the holy son of the Battle God Saber sect and one of the top 10 young masters of the South Sky region. Gu Zun, you've gained enough experience in the tyrannical Saber Dynasty. Follow me back to the Battle God Saber sect, said Dao Wuming. What's the point of living if I can't end Yi Guchen with my own hands? Gu Zun's eyes were as red as blood, and he was in extreme pain. Didn't your master say that he hopes you can be like a heavenly saber that can cut through the sky of the South Horizon region? The battlefield of prodigies is the best opportunity to prove yourself, said Dao Wuming. Gu Zun could easily become a disciple of the Battle God Saber sect. But the battlefield of prodigies could make Gu Zun famous. Hearing this, Gu Zun's body suddenly trembled, and his dead eyes sharpened again, filled with killing intent. That's right. Except for Yi Guchen's obsession. He still had to fulfill Yu Bufan's last wish, and shake the South Horizon region with the name of the saber. The battlefield of prodigies, I want to participate. Gu Zun's voice was sonorous and cold. He left with Dao Wuming. Although the battlefield of prodigies had not opened, he still had to go to the Battle God Saber sect to cultivate. As for the sacred dynasty's inheritance in the Thousand Demon Nest, Gu Zun was not interested and had no intention of going. However, he did not know that his unintentional action had delayed the fated confrontation between him and Yi Guchen once again. On the other side, the people of the four great dynasties had spent more than half a month on the road. Along the way, Yi Guchen also learned about the situation of the other three great dynasties in detail. The prodigies on the Battle God list, Blood list, and Saber list were definitely not to be underestimated. Yi Guchen could not help but think of the Pink Gentleman, the Gold and Silver Sabers, and the others he had met in the ancient Chaos Wasteland. He would probably have the chance to meet them again this time. At that time, there would be a score to settle. In addition, Princess Luo Ho was also likely to participate. But Yi Guchen now had enough confidence and was not afraid of anyone. After more than half a month, the people of the four great dynasties finally approached the Thousand Demon Nest. Chapter 1042. The Thousand Demons' Nest was not located in any dynasty. If a dangerous place like the Thousand Demons' Nest was located in a dynasty, the dynasty would be destroyed in a few days. The destructive power of a monster king was comparable to a nuclear bomb. If there was no false sacred expert to stop it, it could easily destroy an intermediate dynasty. The Thousand Demons' Nest was located in a place called the Barren Demon Land in the South Horizon region. The entire Barren Demon Land was extremely large and filled with many monsters. There were no dynasties around the Barren Demon Land, making it seem uninhabited. Other than some hunting groups that would enter the Barren Demon Land to hunt monsters, almost no one would come here. As for the Thousand Demons Nest in the center of the barren demon land, it was a forbidden area. Hunting groups did not dare to go near it. On this day, a hunting group was hunting in the barren demon land. Hey, have you heard the recent news? It is said that there is an ancient treasure in the Thousand Demons Nest, a member of the hunting group said. So what if I've heard of it? A place like the Myriad Demon Nest is a place where even false saint experts won't be able to gain any benefits. Those demon beast kings are not to be trifled with, another person said. At this moment, there was an earth-shattering roar in the distant sky. What's going on? Is there a great danger? The members of the hunting group were shocked. However, when they looked carefully, they found that it was a huge ship crossing the sky. There was a sword-shaped pattern on the surface of the ship. That is the symbol of the Sword Dynasty. A member of the hunting group was shocked. That direction is the Thousand Demons Nest. Could it be? The members of the hunting group looked at each other in dismay. The Thousand Demons Nest was an absolute forbidden area in the barren demon land. I'm afraid this world is going to change. Everyone sighed in their hearts. This scene played out in all directions of the barren demon land. The fleet of the other three dynasties also sailed into the barren demon land. We are finally arriving. On a ship, Yiguchen stood on the deck and looked into the distance. After entering the barren demon land, Yiguchen also felt the aura of many monsters. Further away, in the core of the barren demon land, Yiguchen could also vaguely feel an endless amount of monster chi gathering. That place was definitely a forbidden area. This time, it was fortunate that the four dynasties had chosen to join forces. Otherwise, if any one of the dynasties wanted to enter alone, they might have to pay an extremely great price. Another day passed, and the Sword Dynasty's fleet stopped in midair. What's going on? Some of the geniuses were puzzled. We've arrived at the agreed location, Bei Xian Elder said. The four great dynasties agreed on a location, and they would march together at that time. Otherwise, it would be even more dangerous to enter separately. Not long after, a series of explosions could be heard in the distant sky. One after another, ironclad warships sailed through the void. There were also ferocious ancient war chariots rumbling in the sky. The entire fleet of ships carried a kind of fighting and killing aura, which was very fierce. It's the War God Dynasty. On the Sword Dynasty's side, the hearts of many experts and prodigies trembled. The War God Dynasty was ranked second among the 100 dynasties. In terms of foundation, it was not much weaker than the Sword Dynasty. The leaders of the War God Dynasty were the Heaven War Emperor and the Earth War Emperor, who were known as the Heaven War Emperor. Their strength was outstanding among the false saints, and it was said that they were not far from the Tribulation Saint realm. In addition, there were various marquises, all of whom were false saints. If the proud divine land had not gone missing and the Sword Dao Alliance had not split up, they would have been able to firmly suppress the War God Dynasty. But now, it was a bit uncertain. Obviously, the War God Dynasty also wanted to use the opportunities left behind by the Sacred Dynasty to strengthen their national strength and surpass the Sword Dynasty to take the throne of the First Dynasty. Yiguchen looked around and found that the War God Dynasty had sent 5 false saints this time. Although they were not as strong as the Sword Dynasty, they were not weak. Alliance leader you're really early. A false saint from the War God Dynasty stepped out. Heroic Martial Marquis, are you leading the team this time? Lianqing glanced at the false saint lightly. It's a pleasure to work with you this time. These little bastards of the War God Dynasty can't compare to the geniuses of the Sword Dynasty. The heroic Martial Marquis laughed heartily. On the Sword Dynasty's side, many geniuses looked over. Some geniuses on the War God list were among them. As expected, Yiguchen found Jean Booby among them. Jean Booby ranked 10th on the War God list. He had appeared in the ancient Chaos Wasteland before, and at that time he had brought some pressure to Yiguchen. But now, as if sensing Yiguchen's gaze, Jean Booby's expression changed slightly. The various miracles that Yiguchen had created in the Sword Dynasty gradually spread to other dynasties. As the Sword Dynasty's invisible opponent, the War God Dynasty naturally gathered a lot of information. Is that person the natural-born saint, Dugubai? He doesn't look like he has 3 heads and 6 arms. Beside Jean Booby, a young girl about 13 years old spoke with a crisp voice. The young girl was delicate, with bright eyes and black hair tied into 2 ponytails. She crossed her arms in front of her ordinary-looking chest, revealing 2 small canine teeth as she spoke. Your Highness, Dugubai is a natural-born saint after all. You can't underestimate him, Jean Booby said respectfully. When he was in the ancient Chaos Wasteland, he was domineering and awe-inspiring. But now, facing this adorable budding lowly, he actually had a bit of respect. He's quite handsome. I wonder how strong he is compared to my royal brother. It's a pity that my royal brother is in seclusion to prepare for the prodigy battle and can't come. The young girl shook her head with a hint of pity. On the other side, Yiguchen also noticed the young girl. Is that young girl the little princess of the war god dynasty, Zhao Xiaodi? Yiguchen muttered to himself. Zhao Xiaodi was ranked 8th on the war god list. This ranking didn't seem very high, but one should know that Zhao Xiaodi was only 13 years old. To be able to rank 8th on the war god list at 13 years old was enough to show her amazing talent and strength. It said that the little princess of the war god dynasty has a special bloodline and was born with strange strength. I wonder how strong she is, Yiguchen thought to himself. But he wasn't interested in competing with a young girl. Seeing Yiguchen sizing her up, the little princess Zhao Xiaodi pouted her pink lips and waved her small fist at Yiguchen as if she wanted to beat him up. Yiguchen smiled and didn't care. Not long after, another group of ships sailed over from another place, with a gust of piercing saber chi. The Tyrant Saber dynasty had arrived. This time, the Tyrant Saber dynasty had sent 4 false saints, which was not a small number. Yiguchen glanced over and saw some geniuses on the saber list. He also saw 2 acquaintances among them. They were the gold and silver sabers, Jin Huan and Ingu. Back in the ancient Chaos Wasteland, the gold and silver sabers had taken away one of Yiguchen's map fragments because of Ouyang Fengyun's obstruction. Sensing Yiguchen's gaze, Jin Huan and Ingu were a little scared. Although they had both broken through to the divine dwelling stage, and their combined strength had greatly increased. But the name Yiguchen had created really made them afraid. He was a natural saint. Yiguchen was a little disappointed after sweeping his gaze over. He knew about the saber list and knew that Gu Zun was also training in the Tyrant Saber dynasty and had pushed his way up the saber list. But Yiguchen didn't see any trace of Gu Zun. Gu Zun, if you participate in the Battle of the Heavenly Prides, you will definitely fight again, Yiguchen muttered. Gu Zun was an opponent that Yiguchen recognized. Then, in the distance, endless black chi spread out with a chilling aura. The Mara dynasty had arrived. Chapter 1043. The Maluo dynasty was ranked 3rd among the 100 great dynasties. If the Sword dynasty was a kingdom of sword cultivators, then the Tyrant Saber dynasty was a paradise for saber cultivators. Then the Maluo dynasty was a veritable dynasty of killing and a kingdom of death. In the Maluo dynasty, there was no morality or law to speak of. All the warriors of the Maluo dynasty believed that the strong were respected. People with strength, resources, influence, power, and women had everything. People without strength could only wait for the fate of being killed. It was precisely because of this that the experts of the Maluo dynasty were mostly insidious, cunning, indifferent, and bloodthirsty. They were extremely powerful. There were also the Heaven Prides on the blood ranking. Each one of them was ruthless and cruel, causing people to tremble in fear. Even the Heaven Prides of the other 3 great dynasties were unwilling to face the Heaven Prides of the Maluo dynasty. The Maluo dynasty had also sent 5 false saint experts this time. In addition, there were also some sovereigns of the Heavenly Palace. Of course, the main force that entered the Sacred Dynasty's treasure trove was still the Heaven Prides of the Divine Dwelling stage. Yiguchen narrowed his eyes slightly. In the Maluo dynasty, there were people who hated him. A hateful gaze fell on Yiguchen. Yiguchen looked over indifferently. A bewitching man sitting in a pink palanquin was staring at Yiguchen with extremely resentful eyes. It was the 7th on the blood ranking, the pink playboy. In the great tomb of the ancient Chaos Wasteland, Yiguchin had directly cut off one of the pink playboy's hands in order to seize the map fragments. At this moment, the pink playboy's severed hand had unexpectedly recovered. It was unknown what kind of recovery pill he had taken. But Yiguchin didn't care. In the ancient Chaos Wasteland, Yiguchin wasn't particularly afraid of the pink playboy. Now that his strength was different from the past, he didn't need to care about Yiguchin. Seemingly aware of the indifference in Yiguchin's eyes, the pink playboy's bewitching face was about to distort. Damn, how can this bastard be so strong? He broke through the 20th floor of the Sword Dynasty's Mount Saint Crossing, became a natural saint, and even swept away Hua Wuxiu and the others in the 5 Academies tournament. Pink Gentleman felt a sense of disbelief when he thought of all the rumors that had been spread by Yiguchin. He was simply unwilling to believe that this Yiguchin was the person who had formed a grudge with him back in the ancient Chaos Wasteland. This kind of improvement speed was too shocking. Even the Pink Gentleman had received a lot of rewards from the Mo Luo dynasty for handing over the incomplete map. They had even given him pills that could heal his palms, which had greatly increased his strength. But now, if Pink Gentleman were to face Yiguchin alone, he still did not have the slightest bit of confidence. Fortunately, I've already made arrangements after receiving the news. Pink Gentleman's eyes flashed with a cold glint. Ever since he received news about Yiguchin, Pink Gentleman had been thinking about how to take revenge. Pink Gentleman, is this Duguwubai the one who chopped off your hand? He's no longer a nameless person. A tall and mighty figure landed beside the Pink Gentleman's sedan chair. It was a very sturdy young man. He was wearing animal skin and had oil paint on his face. He looked a little like a barbarian. His pupils were vertical like a beast's and emitted a faint green light. The sturdy young man was called Chao Hu. He came from a sect called the Demonic Beast sect in the Mo Luo dynasty. He was the top genius of this sect and ranked 10th on the blood ranking. Although his ranking was not high, this sect's strongest technique was to tame beasts. If the blood ranking did not include demonic beasts in combat strength, Chao Hu's ranking would not only be 10th. This trip to the 10,000 Demons' Nest was Chao Hu's natural battlefield. Naturally, he would not miss it. Humph, how would I know that he was so capable at that time? But Chao Hu, this time you have promised to help me get rid of this bastard. Pink Gentleman transmitted his voice. Don't worry, I won't break my promise. My little guys will definitely want to eat the flesh of such a natural saint, right? Chao Hu grinned, revealing a mouth full of sharp teeth. Pink Gentleman was still worried. He transmitted his voice to another direction. Your Highness, if there is an accident this time, I'll need you to help. In another direction, a cold and beautiful figure stood on the deck. Her skin was snow white, and her body was graceful. She was almost naked, and only her important parts were covered with black scales. Her smoky gray hair fluttered in the wind. The upper half of her delicate face was covered by a mask, revealing her charming red lips. This cold and beautiful figure carried an extremely dark and bloody aura. She was a woman, but she looked like a Shura from hell. She was the second on the blood ranking of the Mo Luo dynasty, Princess Luo Ho. To be second on the blood ranking meant that Princess Luo Ho's hands were stained with blood. Not to mention the geniuses of the other 3 dynasties, even some of the geniuses of the Mo Luo dynasty looked at Princess Luo Ho with fear. She was a truly cruel and cold-blooded beauty. Hearing Pink Gentleman's words, Princess Luo Ho transmitted her voice indifferently. If the time is right, I won't hesitate to help. Thank you, Your Highness. Pink Gentleman breathed a sigh of relief after receiving Princess Luo Ho's promise. He looked at Yiguchin and said in a cold voice with incomparable hatred, Duubai, you broke my arm back then. This time I'll break your life. Yiguchin's consciousness was sharp, and he also felt Pink Gentleman's killing intent. He was not surprised, but he was curious about where Pink Gentleman got the confidence to deal with him. Pink Gentleman must have known about Yiguchin's various news. It's easy to dodge an open attack, but difficult to dodge a hidden arrow. However, if you want to die, then don't blame me. Yiguchin's eyes also became cold. The teams of the 4 dynasties gathered together. The number of false saint experts had reached a total of 24. This was definitely a terrifying number. When this force was gathered together, even an overlord-level force would have to be cautious. However, the monsters in the myriad demon nest were also extremely powerful. Each monster king could fight 2 or even 3 monsters at the same time. Let's go! Next, the joint team of the 4 dynasties headed toward the core of the barren demon land. After half a day, Yiguchen finally saw the nest of 10,000 demons, which was quite famous in the South Horizon region. The myriad demon nest was called a nest, but it was actually an extremely ancient and desolate mountain range. The entire mountain range was oval-shaped like a bird's nest. In addition, there were many ferocious monsters, which was why it was called the myriad demon nest. As everyone knew, there were powerful monster kings in the myriad demon nest. Even false saint experts did not dare to approach the myriad demon nest alone. This was because the monster kings were extremely sensitive to auras. If it was just some heaven and earth spirit bridge experts or human divine dwelling experts, it would be far from enough to alarm the monster kings. However, if a top sovereign or false saint expert came, the monster kings in the depths of the myriad demon nest would immediately sense it. Just like now. In the southern region of the myriad demon nest, a lion's roar shook the sky. In the eastern region of the myriad demon nest, a tiger's roar shook the forest for thousands of miles. Then there was the howl of a wolf. There was the cry of an ape. There was the hissing of a giant python that made one's scalp go numb. Everyone be on guard. The monster kings are about to appear. Yi Tianqing said with a serious expression. Everyone from the 4 dynasties raised their guard. The monster kings of the myriad demon nest were finally about to appear. Chapter 1044. It was rumored that the 1,000-demon nest had a total of 10 demon kings, and each of them was a ferocious existence. Not to mention the divine dwelling realm prodigies and heavenly palace sovereigns of the 4 dynasties, even some false saints had solemn expressions. In the distant sky, a fierce lion-shaped demon beast flapped its wings and flew over. It had a pair of wings on its ribs, and its tail was not a lion's tail but a scorpion's tail that looked like it was carved out of white jade. It's the Demon King, the scorpion-tail jade lion. Some sovereigns exclaimed. The scorpion-tail jade lion was an extremely powerful demon king. Its white scorpion tail was comparable to a heavenly tribulation divine weapon. It could easily penetrate all kinds of armor and had fatal poison. However, there were still 24 false saints present. Although everyone was surprised, they did not panic too much. However, following that, more ferocious auras rushed over. A tiger king that looked like it was made of gold appeared. The tiger's roar shook the forest and shook the surroundings. It was the Demon King, the Golden Tiger King. A silver-white wolf king dashed over at high speed. There was a moon-shaped emblem on its forehead that released a powerful aura. Every time it jumped, it could trample a mountain peak. It's the Demon King, the Howling Moon Demon Wolf. Someone exclaimed in a low voice. Buzz, a wasp king appeared. It was as big as a bird, and its wings were as sharp as swords, bursting with endless sword chi. The sword-winged wasp king. Some sovereigns' faces turned pale. Another powerful demon king had appeared. A shadow was cast in the sky. It was a pitch-black python that was 100 feet long. It had 8 wings on its back and hissed. It's the 8-winged fiend python. Everyone was terrified. One after another, the kings of the beast showed up. The aura of each of them was incomparably terrifying. There were even some demonic beast kings among them. Even false saint experts frowned when they saw them. For example, there was a black dragon with 8 eyes. It was a rather ferocious demonic beast king called the 8-eyed ghost dragon. There was an eagle-type demon beast with green eyes and golden feathers all over its body. As it flapped its wings, wind blades burst out. That was the Demon King, the green-eyed golden eagle. There was also a gigantic ape that was as large as a mountain. Its entire body was covered in pitch-black dragon scales, and there was a fleshy lump on its forehead, as if something was about to grow out of it. This giant ape was called the Dark Dragon Ape. There was even a trace of the dragon tribe's bloodline in its body. Although it was very faint, it was still extremely powerful. In just a few moments, the 10 kings of the demonic beasts of the myriad demons' nest had all arrived. The terrifying demonic aura turned into a tremendous wave that swept across the place. "Human, what are you trying to do?" the dark draconic ape asked in a low, muffled voice. The king of demonic beasts could already speak the human language, and its intelligence was not inferior to that of humans. Looking at the 10 demonic beast kings, even some of the false saints looked solemn. The kings of the monsters in the myriad demons' nest usually occupied their own territories. There were many disputes, and some were even like fire and water. However, in the face of human beings or other alien races, these kings of demon beasts would temporarily put aside their internal conflicts and unite against the common enemy. It was also because of this that the myriad demons' nest was so infamous that even false saints did not dare to casually step into it. "We found a human relic in the myriad demons' nest, and we need to enter it," Heavenly Sentiment said faintly. "Do you think it's possible? If we kings of demonic beasts want to enter your dynasty's imperial capital, would you be willing to?" The dark draconic ape asked in a low voice. Its voice was like the beating of a heavenly drum. "Moreover, you humans have always been treacherous. With such a lineup, I'm afraid you have long planned this." The green-eyed golden eagle flapped its wings in the air and spoke the human language. "Alliance leader, why waste your time talking to these beasts? Anyway, these beasts will not give in. Let's just kill our way in." Hua Yuntao suddenly said loudly, his eyes flashing secretly. "This." Heavenly Sentiment frowned slightly. However, these words completely ignited the anger of the kings of demonic beasts. "Human scum, you're courting death." The dark draconic ape roared angrily. Its fist seemed to break the sky as it blasted toward the Sword Dynasty. The rest of the kings of demonic beasts, such as the scorpion-tailed jade lion, sword-winged bee king, moon-howling demonic wolf, eight-eyed ghost dragon, golden tiger king, eight-winged demonic python, and other kings of demonic beasts also roared and charged toward the 4 great dynasties. "Everyone, for the sake of the sacred dynasty's treasure, let's go." The War God Dynasty's heroic martial marquis also made his move. If they wanted to explore the sacred dynasty's treasure in the myriad demons' nest, they had to delay these kings of demonic beasts. Rumble. The battle between the kings of demonic beasts and the human false saints had completely begun. In fact, the 4 great dynasties also knew that these kings of demonic beasts would definitely not let them explore the myriad demons' nest. Therefore, they had long been prepared for battle. At this moment, 24 false saints made their move, and their power shook the heavens and the earth. The entire myriad demons' nest mountain range seemed to be trembling. Countless demonic beasts were awakened, and they felt as if doomsday was coming. "You human scum, you will pay the price in blood." The moon-howling demonic wolf roared. Although there were only 10 kings of demonic beasts, their numbers were far less than the 24 false saints of the human race. However, each king of demonic beasts could fight 2 or even 3 false saints at the same time. Even if 2 or 3 false saints of the same level worked together, they might not be able to kill a king of demonic beasts. Rumble. The terrifying shockwaves of the battle were like huge waves, sweeping in all directions. The other prodigies and supremacies of the 4 great dynasties all jumped down from the ship. "Take the opportunity to enter," a false saint shouted. Immediately, the prodigies and supremacies of the 4 great dynasties all swarmed into the myriad demons' nest. "Humans, you will not succeed." The dark dragon ape roared, and its voice was like thunder. It threw out a punch and directly sent a false saint flying, causing him to cough up blood. The dark dragon ape was one of the strongest kings of demonic beasts, even among the 10 kings of demonic beasts. Taking advantage of the opportunity when the false saints were delaying the 10 kings of demonic beasts, the prodigies of the 4 great dynasties also broke into the myriad demons' nest under the lead of many supremacies. On the side of Sacred Cliff College, First Elder Ime, who was a 9th heaven supremacy, was leading, followed by a few temple masters and elders, and then Yiguchen and the other Sacred Cliff College disciples. The other colleges and the people of the 4 great dynasties also went in. However, not long after they entered, Yiguchen's sharp divine consciousness sensed many powerful demonic chi rising in the distance. It's not that simple, Yiguchen thought to himself. If they could delay the 10 kings of demonic beasts, they could easily enter the myriad demons' nest. Then there would be no need for prodigies like them, and they could just send supremacies. Powerful demonic beasts appeared one after another. Although the aura of these demonic beasts had not reached the level of the kings of demonic beasts, it was not too far away. Rank 7 demonic beasts. First Elder Ime frowned. Rank 7 demonic beasts were comparable to human supremacies. In addition, demonic beasts were born with advantages in terms of body size, physical strength, and other aspects. Therefore, facing a rank 7 demonic beast, even supremacies of the Celestial Palace would not have much of an advantage. Now, the rank 7 demonic beasts in the myriad demons' nest had received orders from the 10 kings of demonic beasts to attack the dynasty's experts who had broken into the myriad demons' nest. The only ones who could stop these rank 7 demonic beasts were the supremacies of the Celestial Palace. My friend Dugu, we supremacies will go and stop the rank 7 demonic beasts later. Then, we'll leave the search for the sacred dynasty's treasure to you guys. Remember, you have to make sure you can survive first. First Elder Ime said earnestly. For a prodigy like Yiguchen, the first thing to do was to stay alive, and the second was to fight for the opportunity. Understood. Yiguchen nodded slightly. He knew that it was probably time for the prodigies of the 4 dynasties to show their skills. Chapter 1045. There were many Celestial Palace supremacies from the 4 dynasties. However, there were also many rank 7 beasts in the Thousand Demons' nest. Soon, the menacing rank 7 beasts clashed with the Celestial Palace supremacies from the 4 dynasties. Senior Dugu, what should we do now? Some Sacred Cliff College disciples asked. Yiguchen had become the backbone of everyone in Sacred Cliff College. Avoid these rank 7 beasts and go deep into the Thousand Demons' nest as soon as possible to find the entrance to the Sacred Dynasty's treasure, Yiguchen said. Before coming to the Thousand Demons' nest, the 4 dynasties had already combined the 4 map fragments into one map. The map indicated that the location of the Sacred Dynasty's treasure was in the Thousand Demons' nest. However, the exact location was very vague. The entire Thousand Demons' nest was extremely vast. It would not be easy to find the entrance to the Sacred Dynasty's treasure. Okay, we'll listen to Senior Dugu, the surrounding Sacred Cliff College disciples said. Xuanlian, Ling Moin, Ling Yamoshu, Kong Kong, Han Lingxian, and the others also followed Yiguchen. The entire Sacred Cliff College's prodigies huddled together. Yiguchen's figure flashed as he went deep into the Thousand Demons' nest with a group of Sacred Cliff College prodigies. The supremacies from the 4 dynasties were holding back the rank 7 beasts. Therefore, the remaining prodigies all rushed into the Thousand Demons' nest at an extremely fast speed. The range is too big, Yiguchen muttered. In the Thousand Demons' nest, ancient trees towered into the sky and covered the sky. The environment was extremely dark. Yiguchen's mind moved, and his chaotic mind sea-rolled as his chaotic soul power spread out. Yiguchen, who had once possessed the chaotic mind sea, had a divine soul perception range of 10,000 feet, far exceeding that of other prodigies of the same level. With the help of his soul perception, Yiguchen led the Sacred Cliff College team to avoid many places with dense demonic energy. That being said, the other 4 academies, the 13 swordsmen, and the geniuses of the remaining 3 dynasties did not waste their time either. They all executed their moves and ventured deeper. At this stage, no sky prides had started killing each other because it was not the right time yet. However, one could imagine that once they found the Sacred Dynasty's treasures, the geniuses of the 4 dynasties would definitely engage in the most brutal battles in the face of the numerous opportunities. Something's not right. Yiguchen suddenly stopped in his tracks. Sacred Cliff College's team also stopped. Everyone's expression changed as they felt the ground shaking. The rest of the geniuses were stunned too. Could it be that the king of the demonic beasts has broken free from its entanglement? Some of the geniuses' faces turned pale. Rumble. Right at this moment, the mountain range in the distance rumbled, and the earth trembled. Large amounts of ancient trees collapsed, and dust filled the sky. Oh no, it's a beast tide. Yiguchen's eyes flashed, and his heart skipped a beat. His soul perception range was the largest, and it was also very sensitive. He immediately sensed that the earth-shattering rumble was a beast tide. If one were to name the most terrifying existences in the nest of 1,000 demons, one would be the 10 kings of the demonic beasts, and the other would be the destructive beast tide. There had been more than one beast tide in the nest of 1,000 demons. Among them, the largest beast tide could even easily destroy a dynasty. Of course, although the scale of the beast tide was not considered large, compared to the number of the geniuses of the 4 dynasties, it was already a crushing presence. Damn it, the beast tide is here. Everyone be careful. The geniuses of the 4 dynasties had a drastic change in their expressions. They saw the beast tide in the distance. Lions, tigers, wolves, horses, apes, monkeys, birds, worms, pythons, and all sorts of other types of demonic beasts gathered together and formed a destructive torrent that pushed forward. Although none of these beasts were particularly powerful, a great number of ants could kill an elephant. Even a supremacy would be terrified if he saw this beast tide. It was obvious that this beast tide was an order from the kings of the demonic beasts. Although the 10 kings of the demonic beasts could not gather a beast tide that could destroy a dynasty in a short period of time. However, such a scale was more than enough to deal with this group of geniuses. You guys have to be careful. If you can't handle it, just run, Yiguchen said. Although this beast tide was terrifying, Yiguchen's imminent skyline movement technique was not too big of a problem for him to escape. However, the same could not be said for the other sacred Cliff College disciples. Yiguchen was not the only one who thought so. Although the geniuses of the other 4 academies and the 3 dynasties were a little nervous, none of them retreated directly. After all, the sacred dynasty's treasure was too attractive. If they could obtain some opportunities, they would soar to the sky. Not to mention that there might be fruit of the sacred path among them. Rumble. The beast tide trampled on the ground, and cracks spread out. The geniuses of the 4 dynasties performed their moves together, forming a colorful torrent of moves that swept toward the beast tide. Boom, boom, boom. A large group of demonic beasts at the front exploded into clouds of blood mist. After all, there were no 7th-level demonic beasts among them. However, more demonic beasts charged toward the group of geniuses. In the end, the beast tide and the geniuses of the 4 dynasties collided fiercely. Yiguchen did not hold back. He held the 9-dragon thunder prison and swung his sword. The 9-colored thunder turned into lightning arcs and spread out, sweeping through the group of demonic beasts in front of him. Is that the natural saint of the Sword Dynasty, Dugubai? Some of the geniuses of the other dynasties saw the power of Yiguchen's sword from the corner of their eyes, and their eyelids twitched. Especially those from the other 3 dynasties. They had only heard about Yiguchen and had not seen it with their own eyes. Looks like it's not bad. The little princess of the War God Empire, Zhao Xiaodi, also widened her watery eyes in surprise. She had thought that the news of the natural saint was just a rumor. Now, it seemed that it was not fake. On the other side, Pink Playboy's face was also a little ugly. The more powerful Yiguchen was, the lower his chances of revenge would be. Jin Kuei snorted coldly, his dark golden hair fluttering. He raised the bronze pagoda with his left hand. In an instant, flying needle-like weapons flew out of the pagoda. In the end, they expanded in the wind and turned into flying swords. A total of 81 flying swords flew out of the bronze pagoda. Every 9 flying swords formed a lotus-shaped sword formation. The 81 flying swords formed a 9-colored lotus sword formation and flew toward the beast tide. Instantly, blood splattered everywhere. Severed limbs flew everywhere, and a large empty space appeared in front of them. Is that Jian Kuei of the Sword Dynasty? He can use such a powerful sword formation casually. Jian Kuei's method shocked the geniuses of the other 3 dynasties once again. Everyone could see that the sword chief had only casually used a move, yet it possessed such power. It was truly shocking. Yi Guchen frowned slightly. The person who could take Jian Kuei's position was indeed something. Then, the geniuses of the other dynasties showed their abilities. While Wuxiu controlled the light and shadow swords and swept the area with sword qi, Jian Jinghong used the ultimate technique that he had learned in the ancient sword tomb. It was flawless, and many beasts were directly cut into pieces. The little princess of the war god dynasty, Zhao Xiaodi, took out a golden hammer that did not match her petite figure. With one swing, she smashed a group of beasts. It was so violent that it made people's eyes twitch. In addition, Princess Luo Ho of the Maluo dynasty held the death scythe and left blood everywhere she went. On the Tyrant Sword dynasty side, a young man with a wild temperament held a tiger-headed sword. His sword qi was so powerful that it cut through everything. His name was Mo Guangdao, and he was a powerful genius who ranked 6th on the sword roll of the Tyrant Sword dynasty. It could be said that some of the truly powerful geniuses had shown their abilities in the beast tide. Of course, there were also many geniuses who died in the mouths of the beasts. After all, a large number of ants could kill an elephant. The sheer number of beasts could drown this group of geniuses. Chapter 1046. Fighting, shouting, and the roars of the beasts echoed throughout the thousand-demon nest. In the sky, the false saints and supremacies of the 4 dynasties were fighting with the kings of the beasts and many rank 7 beasts. On the ground, the terrifying beast horde was fighting with the prodigies of the 4 dynasties. Absolute Sword of Qian Yang. The sword in Yi Guchen's hand vibrated, and a blazing sword aura pierced through a group of rank 5 beasts, causing blood to splatter everywhere. However, even more demonic beasts surrounded and attacked them. There were also casualties among the disciples of Sacred Cliff College. We can't go on like this. Yi Guchen frowned. Just as he was about to think of a way, the sword chieftain, who was standing not far away, suddenly said, "Everyone, we can't go on like this. Although the 4 great dynasties are in a competitive relationship, we still have to find the sacred dynasty's treasure before fighting, right?" Jian Kuei's words made the surrounding prodigies' expressions flicker. No matter what the Sword dynasty's current situation was, at least it was still the first dynasty. And Jian Kuei was the leader of the 13 swordsmen. His casual attack just now had shocked everyone. Therefore, Jian Kuei's words were quite influential. "I suggest that we band together like a rope and break through the beast horde like a sharp knife and directly enter the depths of the thousand-demon nest," Jian Kuei said. "I agree," Hua Wuxiu said. "That's a good idea." Zhao Xiaodi and the other prodigies of the war god dynasty nodded. "Okay," Princess Luo Ho said coldly after thinking for a while. At this stage, it wouldn't be good for any dynasty if they didn't unite. They might even make a wasted trip. "Okay, then we'll band together. Since I'm the one who suggested it, I'll take the lead." Jian Kuei let out a cold shout as his mind moved. The 9 Lotus Sword array had a total of 81 flying swords. They hovered in the void and rushed forward like a meat grinder, plowing a path of blood and flesh wherever they passed. Jian Kuei held the pagoda in his left hand and put his right hand behind his back. He strolled leisurely like a fiend god. So strong. The sky prides of the Battle God dynasty, Mo Luo dynasty, and domineering Saber dynasty felt their eyelids twitch. The strength of the Sword dynasty's Jian Kuei far exceeded their expectations. Even on the Sword dynasty's side, Kenpo and the other independent sword sons didn't look too good under their masks. The stronger the Jian Kuei was, the slimmer their chances of winning the position of Jian Kuei. With a super prodigy like Jian Kuei leading the way, the prodigies from the other 3 dynasties were also relieved. At the very least, Jian Kuei himself did not seem like he was trying to trick them. After that, the prodigies of the various dynasties gathered and followed closely behind Jian Kuei, tearing a path through the dense beast horde. "What should we do?" Ling Emoshu asked with a frown. These prodigies from the itinerant cultivator camp were actually unwilling to listen to Jian Kuei. "Let's follow him." "He's right," Yi Guchen said calmly. Although he and Jian Kuei were enemies, there was nothing wrong with what Jian Kuei was doing. After a while, the disciples of Sacred Cliff College also gathered together. With Yi Guchen leading the way, they prepared to break through the beast horde's encirclement through the opening. However, not long after Yi Guchen moved forward, he suddenly noticed two people from the Moro dynasty in front of him. One of them was a familiar face. It was Pink Playboy. The other was a burly young man dressed in animal skin. His eyes were glowing with a green light like that of a wild beast. That's Chao Hu, ranked 10th on the blood ranking of the Moro dynasty, Yi Guchen murmured. At this moment, Pink Playboy's lips curled into a vicious smile. Chao Hu, you can attack now. Okay, let's kill this Dugawubai directly. Chao Hu grinned, revealing his beast-like fangs. He suddenly waved his hand, and dozens of blood-red bullets shot toward Yi Guchen and Sacred Cliff College like thunderbolts. Be careful! Yi Guchen, with his sharp senses, shouted in a low voice. He could dodge directly, but the disciples of Sacred Cliff College were behind him. Yi Guchen could not dodge. He swept his 9-dragon thunder prison, and a sword light flashed. Boom, boom, boom. Those blood-red bullets exploded one by one. They were not very powerful. However, they exploded into clouds of blood-red powder with a strong smell of blood. Oh no! Yi Guchen immediately sensed Chao Hu's intention. The blood-red powder almost contaminated all the surrounding disciples of Sacred Cliff College. Yi Guchen was standing at the front, and he was the first to be affected the most. On the other side, Ling Moyin gritted her teeth and said, Chao Hu comes from a force called the Demonic Beast Sect in the Maluo dynasty. That force is best at taming beasts. Her body was also contaminated with some of the powder. Just as the blood-red powder was released, the eyes of the surrounding beasts turned red. They roared and charged toward the Sacred Cliff College team. They were like jackals and wolves that had smelled blood. The degree of madness was unprecedented. This is the Demonic Beast Sect's special beast-attracting powder. Dugawubai, enjoy. Chao Hu grinned. Pink Playboy had paid a price to make him attack. Chao Hu was also very happy. This kind of situation was his home ground. Dugawubai, in the ancient chaos wasteland, you cut off one of my arms. Today, I will bury the entire Sacred Cliff College with you. Pink Playboy revealed a morbid smile. It was as if his whole body was carefree and all the grievances in his heart had been released. You are all courting death. Yi Guchen's face was unprecedentedly cold. If Pink Playboy had only attacked him, Yi Guchen wouldn't have been so angry. But now, the entire Divine Cliff Academy's team had been implicated. Pink Playboy, Chao Hu, if the two of you can walk out of the myriad demon nest alive, I, Dugawubai, will never lift a sword again. Yi Guchen shouted coldly. It was as if a divine king was enraged. To make a sword cultivator swear not to lift a sword, how determined must he be? Pink Playboy's face changed slightly when he heard Yi Guchen's words, which were full of determination and killing intent. Yi Guchen's current status and strength were different from when he was in the ancient chaos wasteland. His words carried a lot of weight. However, Chao Hu didn't think so. He sneered and said, You are about to die, yet you still dare to speak so arrogantly. Let's go. They can't get rid of this beast tide. The demonic beast sect's beast-attracting powder was specially made. Once it was contaminated, it would be very difficult to get rid of immediately. It would take at least 2 hours for it to slowly dissipate. Under the current situation where the beast tide was wreaking havoc and ferocious beasts were everywhere, would Yi Guchen be able to hold on for 2 hours? Chao Hu definitely wouldn't believe it. After sneering at Yi Guchen and the others, Pink Playboy, Chao Hu, and the others rushed toward the torn opening. Yi Guchen wanted to help, but he was surrounded by the endless beast tide. That kid is unlucky. Is a natural saint really going to die halfway? Seeing Yi Guchen's situation, Zhao Xiaodi pouted and shook her head. However, she didn't have any relationship with Yi Guchen. Naturally, she wouldn't risk her life to save him. It seems like I don't have to do anything. You are already dead. Jin Kuei, who was at the front, was the first to break through the beast tide. He glanced at Yi Guchen and calmly retracted his gaze. It was as if he already regarded Yi Guchen as a dead man. What a pity! Hua Wuxiu sighed. He still wanted to end Yi Guchen with his own hands. He never thought that his opponent would be killed by the beast tide. Chapter 1047. Right now, Sacred Cliff College's team was in a critical situation. Due to the beast-attracting powder, they had attracted the attention of most of the beasts. The pressure on the other dynasty prodigies had decreased, and they charged through the beast horde at an extremely fast speed. Shameless! Some Sacred Cliff College disciples' eyes were red. They had become the target of the beast's attacks, while the other dynasty prodigies had safely passed through. To a certain extent, they had gained a huge advantage. "Brother Dugu, let us help you," Kenpo said and was about to turn around to help. "Brother Kenpo, don't come over. I can handle this," Yiguchin said loudly. He had already implicated Sacred Cliff College's team, and he was unwilling to drag anyone else into it. "Kenpo Dugubai is right. We have to look at the big picture. Jinkuei's position is the most important," Jian Shi said solemnly. "Sigh, Brother Dugu, you have to be careful." Kenpo sighed deeply. One reason he left was because he had the heavy responsibility of stopping the Sword Chieftain. On the other hand, he believed that Yiguchin should be able to escape with his abilities. "Dugubai, I believe you won't die so easily," Jian Jinghong muttered to himself. As a disciple of heavenly love, he was the main force against Jinkuei, so he couldn't delay here and couldn't help. In the end, apart from those prodigies who had already died to the beasts, most of the remaining prodigies had broken through the beast horde. Only Yiguchin and Sacred Cliff College's team were still surrounded by countless beasts because of the beast-attracting powder. "Oh no, we can't hold on any longer," some Sacred Cliff College disciples roared. There were already many casualties in the entire team. They were surrounded by countless beasts, making it difficult for them to even escape. "We can't go on like this. If we stick together, we'll be too big of a target. All the demonic beasts will surround us. From now on, listen to me. When I make my move, you guys scatter and scatter. Remember," Yiguchin said firmly. The surrounding Sacred Cliff College disciples all nodded. Qianyang Absolute Sword. Kuan-Yu Absolute Sword. The two swords merged, exterminating the universe. Yiguchin unleashed two sword strikes in quick succession. In the end, they merged into a single sword strike that could destroy the heavens and earth. Rumble. Smoke and dust rose in all directions, and a huge crack that was hundreds of feet long spread out on the ground. Broken demonic beast limbs flew everywhere. This sword directly cleared out a large area of demonic beasts. "Hurry up and leave," Yiguchin shouted. "What about you, senior brother Dugu?" At this moment, the Sacred Cliff College disciples finally reacted. If they were to scatter and leave, then Yiguchin would undoubtedly become the demon beast's biggest target. Because he was at the front, he was contaminated with the most beast-attracting powder. "Don't worry about me. You guys go," Yiguchin said. "No, Master, Xingzhu wants to stay with you," Mu Xingzhu shouted, her starry eyes firm. If they all left, Yiguchin would definitely be in great danger. Ling Moin, Han Lingxian, and the others also had firm eyes. "Enough, don't give me any trouble," Yiguchin frowned and shouted. As he spoke, he swung his sword, causing a rain of blood to splatter. "All right, little Een, let's leave quickly. Believe in Brother Dugu," Ling Imoshu said. It was Yiguchin who saved him from the abyss, so Ling Imoshu also believed in Yiguchin's ability. He would not admit defeat so easily. In the end, Mu Xingzhu and the others could only bite their lips and turn around to leave. As the people scattered, so did the targets. Some of the monsters roared and chased after the Sacred Cliff College disciples. Most of them continued to besiege Yiguchin. This was because the smell of beast-attracting powder on Yiguchin's body was the strongest. Yiguchin's black hair fluttered. With the 9-dragon thunder prison in his hand, it was accompanied by a dragon-like roar, "Come!" A thunder dragon soul emerged from the sword. After many transformations, the thunder dragon soul in the 9-dragon thunder prison had also transformed into a real thunder dragon soul. Its power was naturally a level higher than before. Thunder Dragon Purgatory. Yiguchin once again activated the 9-colored profound thunder to support the power of the thunder dragon soul. In an instant, the surrounding thunder exploded, as if it had turned into a thunder purgatory. All the monsters that stepped into it were killed by the thunder. Gradually, the corpses of the monsters around Yiguchen were piled up into a small hill. However, the demonic beasts were still coming in an endless stream. No, I have to break through the monster tide as soon as possible. Otherwise, even the ultimate sea of chi won't be enough. Yiguchen made up his mind. But at this moment, a sharp cry was heard. It was a monster with the body of a lion and the head of an eagle. It flapped its iron-gray wings and charged at Yiguchen. Iron Griffin. Yiguchen's voice was serious. The Iron Griffin was a rank 6 monster, comparable to a human divine dwelling expert. In addition, monsters of the same level were stronger than humans. The strength of the Iron Griffin was estimated to reach the 6th layer of the divine dwelling realm. On the other side, a huge purple bat flapped its wings and came over. It was another rank 6 monster, the Dark Spirit Demonic Bat. Then, a single-horned blood python appeared. Retreat. Yiguchen used the so close, yet worlds apart movement technique and sword moves to contend with the monster tide. Not only that, Yiguchen also had to resist the siege of 3 rank 6 monsters. Soon, Yiguchen coughed up blood from the corner of his mouth. Heartbreaker, Earth Moon, Extreme Sun, 3 absolutes in 1, Moon falling star sinking vast sun break. Yiguchen used the 3 absolutes of the Holy Sword. For a moment, sword chi rumbled as if the sun and moon were in the sky. The terrifying power directly overturned the ground. Gravel and blood splattered in all directions, clearing a part of the monster tide. The single-horned blood python also hissed. Its body was almost cut in half by the sword, dripping with blood. The Iron Griffin swooped down again. The Dark Spirit Demonic Bat emitted a purple soul shockwave. Yiguchen was hit again and retreated as he fought. In the end, he fell into a cliff valley and couldn't escape. Looking at the endless monster tide in front of him and the rank 6 monsters, Yiguchen was shocked. In the distance, other rank 6 monsters were rushing over. Even Yiguchen couldn't help but ask himself, am I going to die? No, I haven't saved Su Jianshi, I haven't seen Hong Xue, and I haven't killed Di Haotian. How can I die? Yiguchen spirit soared into the sky as he activated his Sea of Qi and used his trump card. Myriad God Tribulation, Life Fall. Yiguchen used his ultimate move. It was as if the god of destruction had descended to the world. The terrifying sword light seemed to transform into a sad song. Blood flowed and splattered on the ground. After Yiguchen's strength increased, the power of the Myriad God Tribulation Sword art also increased. Once again, a large group of monster tide was cleared. However, the smell of blood stimulated the remaining demonic beasts even more. They charged at Yiguchen one by one as if they were not afraid of death. The beast-attracting powder's effect is far from over. Yiguchen was about to use his ultimate move again. However, at this moment, the faint roar of a monster could be heard in the distance. Hearing this voice, the demonic beasts with blood-red eyes all stopped in their tracks. No matter what race they were, they all lowered their heads as if they were welcoming their king. Yiguchen was surprised and looked over. That's... Chapter 1048. Yiguchen's face was filled with surprise at first, then it turned into joy. 2 small dots appeared in the distance and then flew over. It was a fluffy little red bird, flapping its small wings and flying over. In its claws was a little black monkey with a 5-colored mark between its eyebrows. Who else could these 2 little guys be if not the divine condor and Blackie? Squeak, squeak, squeak. Seeing Yiguchen, Blackie immediately jumped onto Yiguchen's body in a flash and kept squeaking. Those round, pitch-black eyes were filled with joy and excitement. Blackie was sealed by the god of ancient paths, so its cultivation and memory were sealed. Therefore, Blackie now regarded Yiguchen as its closest kin. It was naturally overjoyed to see Yiguchen again. Quack boy, long time no see. I didn't expect to see you here. The divine condor also squeaked and flapped its wings, landing on Yiguchen's shoulder. I was wondering if I could find you in the nest of demons. I didn't expect you to really be here. Yiguchen also smiled. The divine condor had been with him for a long time. Although Blackie was a chaotic world demonic ape, it had been a great help to him at a critical moment. Therefore, the divine condor and Blackie were not Yiguchen's pets, but more like friends. Divine condor, it's good to see you again. Su Qingyu's figure came out of Yiguchen's body. Former master, it's all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, Master Condor and boy, you would have been dead. The divine condor was also very grateful to Su Qingyu. How did you come to the nest of demons? Yiguchen asked. At that time, we were separated in the space tunnel. Master Condor and the silly monkey didn't know where we were. We were afraid of being caught by some human warriors, so we could only run to the nest of demons. The divine condor said. They must have been living in fear at that time. Yiguchen looked around and said, but from the looks of it, you guys must be living quite comfortably in the myriad demon's nest. With the arrival of the divine condor and Blackie, the frenzied demonic beasts all lowered their heads as if they were in awe of the divine condor and Blackie. Even when facing Yiguchen, who had been stained with beast-attracting powder, these demon beasts did not dare to take even half a step closer. Even the rank 6 demonic beasts such as the iron-feathered griffin and the dark spirit demonic bat were the same. Brother Condor, you guys seem to have quite a high status in the Thousand Demons' Nest? Yiguchen asked curiously. Hearing Yiguchen's words, the divine eagle cleared his throat and said with a smug expression, do you know about the green-eyed golden eagle? Of course I do. It's a powerful monster king, Yiguchen said. As they approached the myriad demon's nest, the 10 great demonic beast kings appeared, including the blue-eyed golden eagle. But what did this have to do with the divine condor? Green-eyed golden eagle, my wife. The divine eagle coughed and laughed wildly. Ahem, what did you say? Even with Yiguchen's personality, he was a little surprised and choked. The blue-eyed golden eagle, the powerful monster king in the Thousand Demons' Nest, was the divine eagle's wife? It was not that Yiguchen did not believe it, but the difference in size. Little Yi, what's with that look? Do you think I'm small? No, I'm very big. Seeing Yiguchen's look, the divine eagle immediately straightened his feathers. Then, with a boom, flames burst out. In the end, he turned into a majestic divine eagle with a wingspan of 6 feet. There were some golden patterns on the fiery red feathers, and flames were rising. It looked very gorgeous. Its aura had also reached the level of a rank 6 demonic beast. It was equivalent to the divine dwelling stage of humans. It had to be said that the divine eagle's appearance was not bad at all. With my handsome looks, isn't it easy to take down Xiaobai? The divine eagle said smugly. No wonder. Yiguchen was relieved. What kind of existence was the blue-eyed golden eagle? It was the king of all demonic beasts. Since the divine eagle had a relationship with the blue-eyed golden eagle, he could do whatever he wanted in the Thousand Demons' Nest. It was natural that these demonic beasts respected and obeyed him. Not only me, but the dark dragon ape also seems to respect this silly monkey. It said that the silly monkey has some ancestral bloodline, so no one dares to bully us in the Thousand Demons' Nest. As the divine eagle spoke, the flames on his body rose, and he turned back into the little red bird again. Yiguchen was enlightened. Blackie's original form was one of the 100 races in the universe. It was an ancient chaotic demon ape, which was indeed the ancestor of ape demonic beasts. What are you all doing here? Get the hell out of here. The divine condor shouted arrogantly. The surrounding demonic beasts scattered like birds. Yiguchen's crisis was solved. There was a cold light in his eyes. Brother Eagle, please help me solve the crisis of some Sacred Cliff College disciples, Yiguchen said. No problem. Leave it to me. The divine eagle patted his chest and said, Okay. Yiguchen nodded slightly with coldness in his eyes. Pink Playboy and Chao who had completely aroused Yiguchen's killing intent. Then, the divine eagle went to help the Sacred Cliff College disciples. Yiguchen took Blackie and went deep into the Thousand Demons' Nest. Although Yiguchen had the beast-attracting powder, no demonic beasts dared to attack Yiguchen because of Blackie. On the other hand, after breaking through the demonic beast tide, the heavenly talents immediately scattered and looked for the entrance of the Sacred Dynasty's treasure. Chao who also separated from Pink Playboy. Because Chao Hu was from the demonic beast sect, he was a beast tamer. Therefore, he was like a fish in water in the 1,000 demons' nest. There was a liger, a fire-cloud fox, and a thunderbolt leopard around him. These 3 demonic beasts were raised by Chao Hu, and they had all reached rank 6. The reason why Chao Hu was only ranked 10th on the blood list was that demonic beasts were not included in his strength. Otherwise, Chao Hu would not be ranked 10th. That Duguubai must have become a meal in the belly of the demonic beasts. Chao Hu grinned. Chao Hu felt a sense of exhilaration when he thought about how such a natural saint had fallen in his hands. It was the pleasure of killing a heavenly talent with his own hands. "Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you." Just as Chao Hu was talking to himself, a cold voice with extreme killing intent sounded. "Who is it?" Chao Hu's face changed. He felt that the voice was familiar. In the dense forest, Yiguchen was holding the 9-dragon thunder prison. His black robe was soaked in the blood of demonic beasts. His expression was very cold. "Duguubai, how is it possible?" Chao Hu saw the person and his breathing seemed to stop. His eyes were filled with unprecedented astonishment. "How is it impossible? I said that if you and the pink gentleman can walk out of the 1,000 demons' nest alive, I, Duguubai, will never lift a sword again." Yiguchen's eyes were filled with killing intent. "Impossible. Are you a human or a ghost? You have beast-attracting powder on you. How can you still be alive when surrounded by the beast tide?" Chao Hu was shocked and puzzled. "You don't have to worry about how I survived. You only need to know how you will die." Yiguchen's tone was cold and indifferent. After the initial shock, Chao Hu calmed himself down. After all, he was born in the Maluo dynasty and had a cruel personality. He immediately came to his senses. Although I don't know how you escaped, not only did you not run, you even came to find me. Since that is the case, I will let you become the food of my demonic beasts." Chao Hu grinned, revealing a mouthful of white sharp teeth. He had only heard some rumors about Yiguchen, but had never seen Yiguchen's methods with his own eyes. Therefore, he was full of confidence. In addition, he also had 3 divine dwelling stage level 6 demonic beasts. Chao Hu was confident that he could kill Yiguchen. Ignorant. Yiguchen did not say anything else and directly drew his sword. Chapter 1049. Yiguchen was filled with murderous intent towards Chao Hu. Hence, he did not hold back at all and used all his strength. Divine sword lightning controlling technique, myriad thunder transformation. Dazzling 9-colored profound lightning shot out from the 9-dragon thunder prison sword. It turned into dense lightning that poured down on Chao Hu and the 3 demonic beasts. The 3 rank 6 demonic beasts, the liger beast, the fire cloud fox, and the blazing thunder leopard, all had powerful auras as they pounced on Yiguchen. However, at this moment, Blackie, who was beside Yiguchen, let out a squeak. Vaguely, there was a wave of pressure that spread out. It was the pressure that belonged to the chaotic world demon ape. Although Blackie's body was sealed by the ancient Tao God seal, the chaotic world demon ape's bloodline pressure still existed. The 3 demonic beasts immediately withered and their auras weakened. Rumble. Lightning splashed and spread in all directions. The 3 demonic beasts were actually pushed back a little. "What's going on?" Chao Hu looked as if he had seen a ghost. The 3 rank 6 demonic beasts that he had raised were usually ferocious, but now, they were like dispirited sick cats. 3rd ultimate holy sword, star sun flowing fire. Yiguchen's sword vibrated again. The mighty sword light seemed to turn into a blazing torrent that swept out again. The 3 demonic beasts were once again pushed back by the attack. Damn it! Seeing this, Chao Hu's eyes turned scarlet. For a beast tamer, the most powerful means were the demonic beasts. If the 3 demonic beasts were killed, Chao Hu's strength would drop by at least 70 to 80%. Demonic frenzy pill. Chao Hu flicked his finger and 3 pills flew out and landed in the mouths of the 3 demonic beasts. In an instant, the eyes of the 3 demonic beasts turned scarlet and their bodies swelled like balloons. They emitted a violent aura and even ignored Blackie's pressure. "You do have some skills," Yiguchen murmured when he saw this. A beast tamer still had some tricks up his sleeve. However, it still could not stop Yiguchen's killing intent. Third ultimate holy sword, universal annihilation. Yiguchen unleashed 2 swords in succession before fusing them into the universal extermination. Sword chi shot out, slashing towards the 3 demonic beasts. Use the demonic beast divine ability. Chao Hu formed hand seals to control the 3 demonic beasts. Some powerful demonic beasts with bloodlines had demonic beast superpowers. The lion-tiger beast let out an angry roar, emitting a vibrating sound wave. The fire-cloud fox had flames flowing around its body, turning into flames that swept across the area. The blaze bolt leopard opened its mouth and spat out a bolt of lightning. Boom! The sword light collided with the demonic beast's divine ability, causing an astonishing shockwave to erupt. Crushed stones flew everywhere. He should be dead, Chao Hu thought to himself. However, as the dust settled, Yiguchen's figure appeared. On the surface of his body, the ancient god's immovable king armor appeared, and his entire person transformed into an ancient god. Facing 3 rank 6 monster beasts was still a lot of pressure. Hence, Yiguchen directly took out his powerful ancient god form, wanting to end the battle quickly. 8 Extremities Reincarnation Sword Technique, Extreme Fire. Yiguchen raised the 9 Dragon Thunder Prison with one hand, and the sword light shot out, seemingly forming a crimson-red hexagram in the void. That hexagram was the Li hexagram of the 8 trigrams, which also represented fire. This sword was one of the moves of the 8 Extremities Reincarnation Sword Technique. Kill! The tip of Yiguchen's sword touched the crimson-red hexagram, and in an instant, the entire sword seemed to turn crimson red. Yiguchen swept out with his sword, and an unprecedentedly violent shockwave spread out. The 8 Extremities Reincarnation Sword Technique was an upper-grade royal-level sword technique. Even if it was only one of the 8 moves, its power far exceeded that of a lower-grade royal-level sword technique. What kind of sword technique is this? Chao Hu was shocked, and he took a deep breath. The shockwave of the sword chi made him feel a little scared. As Yiguchen swung his sword, a huge crimson sword light swept out, as if turning heaven and earth into a sea of fire. A roar was heard. The liger beast was cut in half by the crimson sword light, and it died immediately. The fire-cloud fox and the blaze bolt leopard also roared in anger, and scorch marks appeared on their bodies. Ancient God's Spear. Yiguchen stretched out his other hand and grabbed at the void. As the ancient god power surged, a golden battle spear appeared in his hand. Yiguchen held the ancient god spear in his hand and threw it out. It turned into a golden rainbow, and once again pierced the fire-cloud fox's body. No! Chao Hu's eyes were red. He had spent a lot of effort to cultivate these 3 monsters, and they were also Chao Hu's strongest moves. But now, 2 of them had been killed by Yiguchen. 8 Extremities Reincarnation Sword Technique, Mountain's Peak. Yiguchen changed his sword move again, and a brown-colored hexagram appeared in the void. It was the Gen hexagram, which represented the mountain. This sword was different from the fire's peak. It represented the weight of the mountain, as if it could suppress 10,000 caddies. The tip of the sword vibrated, and it was as if an ancient mountain was pressing down. It directly crushed the last blaze bolt leopard into minced meat. Damn it, Dugubai, you have to pay the price. The veins on Chao Hu's temples bulged, and his face was ferocious. The 3 monsters that he had spent a lot of effort to cultivate had all been killed. At this moment, while Chao Hu was furious, he also felt a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would not have agreed to deal with Yiguchen for the sake of some benefits from the pink playboy. He seemed to have seen a flash of regret in Chao Hu's eyes. Yiguchen said coldly, "Are you regretting it now? It's too late." Seeing this, Chao Hu's face was ferocious. He took out a magic weapon that looked like a horn, and said sternly, "Du Wubai, I have seen the power of a natural saint, but you still can't kill me." Yiguchen was curious and tilted his head slightly. This is a special magic weapon of the demonic beast sect, called the demonic beast horn. As long as I blow it, it will release a special sound wave that will attract monsters from all directions. At that time, You won't be able to escape death. Chao Hu was cornered and had no choice but to take out his trump card. Then you can try. Yi Guchen ignored him and attacked with his sword. Damn it. Chao Hu blew the demonic beast horn directly. Woo-woo. A special sound wave spread out, and a moment later, there was movement in the forest. Rumble. Once again, many ferocious beasts gathered. You're courting death. Don't blame me. Chao Hu laughed maniacally. He only wanted Yi Guchen to die. However, squeak squeak. Blackie jumped out and squeaked, as if it was shouting something angrily. When the squeak came out, the monsters that were charging over immediately stopped and began to retreat like the tide. Blackie was an existence that even the dark dragon ape respected. How could these monsters dare to offend it? This is impossible, absolutely impossible. Chao Hu was going crazy. His eyes were bloodshot as he blew the demonic beast horn crazily. However, the monsters still retreated and did not stop. How could this be? Chao Hu knelt on the ground, terrified. The demonic beast horn was the treasure of the demonic beast sect, and it had never failed. It's this monkey. Chao Hu stared at Blackie. Now you know how I got away. I'm merciful enough to let you die knowing the truth. Yi Guchen's face was indifferent. No, I can help you deal with the pink playboy. Chao Hu was completely panicked. He knelt on the ground and began to beg for mercy with a pale face. Although the geniuses on the blood ranking of the Maluo dynasty looked fierce, they were all the same when facing death. It's too late. Yi Guchen swung his sword at Chao Hu. Chapter 1050. Yi Guchen had an indifferent temperament and was not a particularly kind person. In addition, Chao Hu's actions had already filled Yi Guchen with murderous intent. Therefore, the result was not surprising at all. The sword in Yi Guchen's hand vibrated and slashed Chao Hu's throat. Chao Hu's head was sent flying along with blood. The 10th on the blood ranking of the Maro dynasty had died. Chao Hu's last expression was frozen with horror and deep regret. If he could do it all over again, he would never agree to help the pink playboy deal with Yi Guchen for a little benefit. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Chao Hu had to pay the price for his wrong choice, his life. Wait, I will let the pink playboy accompany you. Yi Guchen's voice was cold. Chao Hu indeed deserved to be killed, but there was another instigator who deserved to be killed even more, the pink playboy. We can't delay any longer. Hurry up and find the entrance to the sacred dynasty's legacy. After killing Chao Hu, Yi Guchen also began to go deeper into the Thousand Demons' nest. Compared to the other Sky Prides, he had fallen far behind. He might not be able to find the entrance to the sacred dynasty's legacy immediately. However, the sacred dynasty's legacy might be quite strange and complicated, so Yi Guchen was not too worried that he would lose the opportunity. With Blackie by his side, almost no beast in the Thousand Demons' nest dared to attack Yi Guchen. Therefore, Yi Guchen's progress was exceptionally smooth, and he soon went deep into the mountain range of the Thousand Demons' nest. Along the way, Yi Guchen also saw countless broken limbs and remains of beasts. Of course, there were also some Sky Prides from the 4 dynasties. One could imagine how fierce the battle between the Sky Prides and the beasts was. Of course, Yi Guchen did not see any top-tier Sky Prides among the corpses. With the strength of Jin Kuei, Hua Wuxiu, and the others, these beasts could not cause fatal injuries to them. 2 hours later, Yi Guchen finally received news about the entrance to the sacred dynasty's legacy. He rushed toward that place. A quarter of an hour later, Yi Guchen arrived at a very secluded valley. The entire valley was shaped like a horseshoe and was surrounded by all kinds of vines and plants. Looking from afar, there was no entrance at all. So it's in such a secluded place, Yi Guchen muttered. It was no wonder that the relics of the sacred dynasty had not been discovered for so long. First of all, not many people dared to come to a place like the Myriad Demon's Nest. Secondly, the entrance was too well hidden and difficult to find. But now, the entrance had been opened up by the Sky Prides who had entered earlier. Yi Guchen could enter directly. At this moment, a sobbing voice came from behind Yi Guchen. Then, a petite figure threw herself into Yi Guchen's arms. Master! Who else could it be but Mu Xingzu? Not far away, Ling Yimoshu, Ling Moyin, Xuanlian, Kong Kong, Han Lingxian, and other disciples of Sacred Cliff College appeared one after another. Little Yi, fortunately, I did not disappoint you. The divine condor flapped its wings and flew in the air to lead the way. Master, please don't do that again next time, okay? Mu Xingzu's eyes were hazy. Although she had confidence in Yiguchen, she was also afraid that there would be an accident. I'm sorry to have made you worry. Yiguchen patted Mu Xingzu's head. Ling Moyin and Han Lingxian were also relieved, but they still had lingering fears. However, when they looked at Mu Xingzu, their gazes were filled with envy. Mu Xingzu could throw herself into Yiguchen's arms without any scruples, but they could not. Yiguchen glanced around and found that many disciples of Sacred Cliff College were missing. He felt a little guilty and said, I'm sorry, everyone. It's all because of me, Brother Dugu, don't say that. Ling Yimoshu immediately interrupted him. That's right. If it weren't for Senior Dugu, I'm afraid we would have been wiped out. That's right. Senior Dugu risked his life to help us escape. We can't thank him enough. Some disciples of Sacred Cliff College spoke one after another. Thank you for your understanding. I've already taken Chao Hu's life. Next, I'll kill Pink Playboy to pay tribute to my dead brothers, Yiguchen said firmly. What? Chao Hu is dead. He's a ruthless man who ranked 10th on the blood ranking of the Maro dynasty. He was killed by Senior Dugu just like that? Hearing Yiguchen's words, all the disciples of Sacred Cliff College looked at each other in dismay. A blood-ranking prodigy was killed so easily. And he said it so casually, as if he had just killed a chicken. Looking at everyone's slightly stunned expression, Yiguchen shook his head and said, This is nothing. Let's hurry up and enter the Sacred Dynasty's treasure. Yiguchen's reminder brought everyone back to reality. They went straight into the valley. Sure enough, in the valley, they found an incomparably huge underground cave, which seemed to lead to the underground. Divine Eagle, Blackie, can you provide support outside? Yiguchen asked. He did not know what would happen in the Sacred Dynasty's treasure. Just in case, he asked the Divine Eagle and Blackie to provide support outside. They could contact the Green-Eyed Golden Eagle and the Dark Dragon Ape, which could increase their protection in case of an emergency. No problem. Grandpa Condor will guard outside for you. The Divine Eagle patted its chest and said. Yiguchen and the disciples of Sacred Cliff College entered the cave. The cave was dark and deep, with cold wind gushing out from it. It seems that the space below should be very big, Yiguchen guessed. After half an hour, Yiguchen and the others finally reached the bottom of the cave. When they looked over, they were shocked. In front of them was an incomparably huge underground space. It was like an underground world that was independent of the world. In this underground world, there were also all kinds of strange-looking plants growing underground. There were also all kinds of minerals that emitted fluorescent light, which made the whole underground world strange. Is this the Sacred Dynasty's treasure? Everyone took a deep breath. In this underground world, there were all kinds of dilapidated ruins everywhere, covered with vines and plants. It was very ancient. Everyone be careful. Yiguchen reminded. A Sacred Dynasty's treasure must be dangerous. They explored carefully. Suddenly, a towering stone wall appeared in front of them, and there was an entrance. At the entrance, they found all kinds of footprints and traces of entry. It should be the heavenly talents who entered the Sacred Dynasty's treasure first. They all went in from here. Yiguchen thought. Then he turned around and said, Everyone, be careful. I will walk in the front, you follow closely behind. Yiguchen did not want to put the disciples of Sacred Cliff College in danger, so he took the lead. Yiguchen was the first to enter. There were all kinds of crooked paths inside the wall. There were also walls on all sides, which could not be broken through. Crack! Not long after Yiguchen walked in, a stone wall suddenly rose from the ground behind him, separating Yiguchen from the Sacred Cliff College team behind him. Yiguchen's eyes flashed, and he slashed at the stone wall with his sword. After a violent explosion, the stone wall was actually undamaged. At this moment, the path changed again, and Yiguchen suddenly led to another path. Is this a maze? Yiguchen suddenly realized. Chapter 1051. Yiguchen did not expect that there would be a maze in the sacred dynasty's treasure. However, if it was just a maze, Yiguchen did not mind. Because Yiguchen had the chaotic spiritual sea, his divine soul's perception range and sensitivity were far better than ordinary people. A maze of this level would not be able to trap him. I hope the others are fine. Yiguchen shook his head and sighed, then began to search for a way out. The entire maze would change the position of the passage in real time, and stone walls would rise from the ground from time to time, blocking the way. Yiguchen spread out his divine soul's perception and found that the surrounding stone walls also had the effect of blocking soul power. What a strange place. Yiguchen sighed. After 15 minutes, Yiguchen suddenly stopped in his tracks. There was a rustling sound coming from the dark part of the path ahead. Just as Yiguchen was concentrating, there were a few sounds of wind breaking. It was a few darts. Yiguchen used wave-like subtle steps to dodge the attack. His eyes narrowed and he said in surprise, "No, it's leaves." At this time, the figure that caused the noise appeared. It was not the other geniuses or demonic beasts that Yiguchen expected. It was a tree. That's right, it was a pitch-black tree. Its thick roots were like human legs. The branches were as sharp as spears, and the leaves were like darts that flickered with cold light. The entire tree was covered with strange demonic patterns, as if it had been contaminated. What is this? Yiguchen was very surprised. He had heard that some plant creatures were very powerful. Some plants could even cultivate into a peerless expert. However, it was Yiguchen's first time encountering such a strange scene. Swoosh! The creepy demonic tree sensed Yiguchen's presence. Without any hesitation, its branches, which were as sharp as spears, tore through the air and stabbed at Yiguchen. Yiguchen held the 9-dragon thunder prison and swung his sword. Clang! The demonic tree's branches and the 9-dragon thunder prison emitted the sound of metal clashing, and dazzling sparks flew out. How could this be? Yiguchen was very surprised. The 9-dragon thunder prison was a quasi-heavenly tribulation divine weapon. Its sharpness was needless to say. It could cut through iron like mud and cut through gold and jade. But now, he was unable to directly cut off the strange demonic tree's branches. Something strange, Yiguchen muttered to himself. Clang, clang, clang. What followed was a series of fights. The strange demon tree was extremely hard and powerful. Ordinary divine dwelling experts might not be able to withstand it. However, Yiguchen's strength wasn't something an ordinary heaven pride of the divine dwelling stage could compare to. Hence, he remained calm and composed. Su Qingyu's voice sounded in Yiguchen's mind. Yiguchen, there seems to be a wisp of the Longevity Ancient's aura on this strange demon tree. Longevity Ancient? Yiguchen was a little puzzled. Do you remember the 3 items I mentioned before to refine my clone? One of them is the longevity wood core, Su Qingyu reminded. Could it be? Yiguchen immediately reacted. Could the longevity wood core be the core of the longevity ancient tree? And now, there was a wisp of the longevity ancient's aura on the strange demon tree. Didn't that mean that there were likely to be traces of the longevity ancient tree in the sacred dynasty's treasure trove? Thinking of this, Yiguchen's eyes lit up with excitement. If that was the case, Yiguchen must get the longevity ancient tree's core. Yiguchen, attack the center of the strange ancient tree, Su Qingyu reminded. Hearing this, Yiguchen infused the 9-colored dark thunder into his sword. The sword directly pierced the center of the strange ancient tree. The sword pierced through the ancient tree, producing a dull sound. The strange ancient tree immediately froze, then turned into wisps of black gas and dust. What was left was an emerald green crystal about the size of a fingernail. Yiguchen reached out and picked it up. This is... Yiguchen felt that the emerald green crystal contained a strong life aura. This is the crystal formed by a wisp of the longevity ancient tree's life spiritual qi, Su Qingyu explained. It seems that the longevity ancient tree is most likely in the sacred dynasty's treasure trove. Yiguchen was even more certain after hearing this news. He already had the bone-molding sacred elixir, and now he had the news of the longevity wood core. As for the soul source crystal, it might also be in the sacred dynasty's treasure trove. If things went well, Yiguchen was very likely to be able to gather the materials to refine his clone. By then, after the clone was refined, Yiguchen would be able to use the power of the God Devourer sword. Let's leave this maze quickly and find the longevity ancient tree. Yiguchen made a decision. He continued moving forward. Along the way, he encountered a few more strange demonic trees, as well as the various dynasties' sky prides who had been killed by the demonic trees. After defeating a few demonic trees, Yiguchen also obtained a few emerald green crystals. Yiguchen suddenly stopped in front of him, because he saw a few corpses, all of which had died miserably. All of their blood had been sucked dry, and they looked like withered corpses. This is Menggu, the war god dynasty's sky pride. Although he was not ranked in the top 10, he was ranked 13th. This is Di Zheng from the Tyrant Sword Dynasty, also ranked in the top 10 on the sword leaderboard. And the Sword Dynasty's sky prides ranked in the top 10 or 20 on the sword leaderboard. Looking at the withered corpses scattered around, Yiguchen frowned. These sky prides were all famous, and they were not weak at all. But now they had all died like this. And the way they died was strange. It did not seem like they were killed by the strange demonic trees. At that moment, the ground under Yiguchen's feet suddenly exploded. Several blood-red vines drilled out of the ground and directly bound Yiguchen. Yiguchen's heart skipped a beat. Yiguchen was still in a daze at this sudden action. And these blood-red vines seemed to be able to block soul perception, so Yiguchen did not notice them. These vines were like dumplings, binding Yiguchen. A strong suction force was emitted, and Yiguchen's blood was involuntarily sucked away by the vines. Now Yiguchen finally knew how those withered corpses were formed. These vines were obviously more powerful and difficult to deal with than the strange demonic trees. If it were an ordinary person, their blood would have been sucked dry in a few breaths, Yiguchen thought to himself. But he was different. He had a perfect body and an ancient god's body, not to mention the heart of the ancient gods sealed in his body. If he burst out with his blood, it would be enough to burst the vines. Just as Yiguchen was about to use his strength to break free from the vines' bindings. Suddenly, there was the sound of wind breaking from both sides of the road. Yiguchen looked over. On one side of the road, there were two men in martial attire, one holding a golden saber and the other a silver saber. They were the gold and silver sabers of the Tyrant Saber Dynasty, Jin Huan and Yingu. The two of them almost immediately noticed Yiguchen, who was bound by the vines. However, before the two of them could show any surprise. On the other side of the road, there was a surprised voice. "Dugwubai, I can't believe I met you." Yiguchen turned his gaze and saw two more figures appear on the other side of the road. The one who spoke was a handsome man in white. It was none other than Ouyang Fengyun. The person beside him was also an old acquaintance, Ouyang Tianji. It's really a small world for enemies. Yiguchen could not help but sigh in his heart. He just happened to be bound by the vines and so happened to meet his old enemies. Chapter 1052. Jin Huan and Yingu were stunned when they saw Yiguchen, then their eyes lit up. In the ancient chaos wasteland, Yiguchen was just a nobody. But now, he had become a natural saint, and his name had spread throughout the neighboring dynasties. When Jin Huan and Yingu heard all kinds of news about Yiguchen, their hearts were uneasy. They hadn't forgotten that they'd made a move to seize a map fragment from Yiguchen in the ancient chaos wasteland. That wasn't a small grudge. Therefore, Jin Huan and Yingu were afraid of Yiguchen's revenge. But they didn't think that what they were afraid of would come true. They actually met Yiguchen. The only difference was that Yiguchen was currently bound by the vampiric demon vines and couldn't move. "Big brother, is this the will of the heavens?" Yingu's eyes flashed coldly. When they saw Yiguchen, they almost wanted to turn and run. But when they saw Yiguchen in danger, they calmed down. Not only did they meet Yiguchen, but it was Yiguchen who was in danger. Was this not the will of the heavens? There are people on the other side as well. They're from the Sword Dynasty. Jin Huan was very cautious as he looked at the other side. After all, Yiguchen was a prodigy of the Sword Dynasty. If the people on the other side helped, wouldn't the two of them be in a passive position? On the other side, Ouyang Fengyun and Ouyang Tianji were also surprised when they saw Yiguchen. That kind of surprise was the surprise of seeing prey fall into a trap. They also didn't think that they would meet Yiguchen when he was trapped. This was the will of the heavens. Ha Dugubai, it's really you. Ouyang Fengyun walked out calmly. Dugubai, we really met you. Ouyang Tianji didn't hide the hatred in his eyes. It could be said that the two of them had been made miserable by Yiguchen. However, they had never reflected on their actions. Every single time, they were the ones who provoked Yiguchen first. Yiguchen had never taken the initiative to target them. In the ancient Chaos Wasteland, it was Ouyang Fengyun who took the initiative to stop Yiguchen from obtaining the map fragment. In the end, the two brothers thought that it was Yiguchen who had bullied them and humiliated them. So it's you. Although Yiguchen was trapped, his expression was incomparably calm. He looked at the Ouyang brothers and then at the gold and silver sabers. They were all enemies. Dugubai, you were so glorious in the 5 academies competition, but now you seem to be in a bad situation, Ouyang Fengyun said calmly, as if he had regained his confidence. So, are you going to make a move? Yiguchen's expression was indifferent. Hey, that's Ouyang Fengyun. They seem to have a grudge against Dugubai, Jin Huan said in surprise. Hearing this, Yingu said, Ouyang Fengyun, if we make a move against Dugubai, will you stop us? The gold and silver sabers were still not sure if Ouyang Fengyun would stop them. After all, they were all heaven's prides of the Sword Dynasty. It was still possible for them to unite against the common enemy. Stop us? Ha, I can't wait to eat his flesh and drink his blood. Do you think I won't stop you? Ouyang Fengyun revealed a cold smile. In the 5 academies competition, Yiguchen had humiliated him. He couldn't wait for Yiguchen to fall. Why would he help him? That's good. It seems that we have the same goal. Yingu laughed. After offending Yiguchen, they couldn't eat or sleep in peace. Now that they had the chance to get rid of this threat, Jin Huan and Yingu couldn't wait. Are you sure you want to make a move? I didn't care too much about what happened before. Yiguchen's eyes flashed as he said indifferently. At that time, the main reason why Yiguchen's map fragment was snatched was because of Ouyang Fengyun's obstruction. The gold and silver sabers were just snatched along the way. Yiguchen didn't particularly hate the two of them. But now, if the two of them were to make a move, the nature would be different. I'm sorry. Firstly, it's because of the grudge in the ancient chaotic wasteland. Secondly, it's because you've grown too quickly. Jin Huan's tone was cold with a trace of jealousy. That's right. You're a natural-born saint. Killing a natural-born saint will make us brothers famous. Yingu's tone was filled with killing intent. To put it bluntly, there was an element of jealousy. They wanted to step on Yiguchen's corpse and become famous. All right then. Do as you wish. Yiguchen nodded and didn't say anything else. In his heart, he had already given the gold and silver sabers a death sentence. Jin Huan and Yingu held onto their sabers as they approached Yiguchen with sinister smiles on their faces. It was as if they could already see Yiguchen falling under their sabers. Dugubai, if you're willing to beg me for mercy, perhaps I can only cripple your cultivation and spare your dog life. Ouyang Fengyun's tone was filled with mockery. He naturally wouldn't spare Yiguchen's life. He only wanted to humiliate Yiguchen before he died. You've made a mistake. Yiguchen smiled faintly. What do you mean? Ouyang Fengyun raised his eyebrows. You've made a mistake by speaking too much nonsense and giving me time to prepare. Yiguchen shook his head. Hearing this, the 4 people's hearts skipped a beat. However, Ouyang Fengyun instantly laughed coldly. Dugubai, don't even think about bluffing. Do you think I don't know that not only are you unable to break free from the blood-sucking demonic vines that bind you, they'll also continuously suck your blood. Even if you don't touch us, you'll be sucked dry sooner or later. That's right. Dugubai, don't even think about bluffing us. Ouyang Tianji was also relieved. Let's go. Jin Huan and Yingu immediately drew their sabers without any hesitation. You are really stupid. Yiguchen laughed coldly. True chi burst out from his body as streaks of ancient god light appeared on the surface of his skin. Yiguchen immediately activated his ancient god form. At the same time, he forced out a few drops of ancient god blood from his ancient god heart. Vigorous blood chi surged out along with his true chi. Break! As Yiguchen said this word, the ancient god power in his body surged and burst out with boundless divine power. A few cracking sounds could be heard. The extremely tough blood-sucking demonic vines were actually torn apart by Yiguchen. A loud rumbling sound could be heard. Under the ground, a bud-like plant exploded. Blood splattered everywhere as the smell of blood filled the air. It was the blood-sucking demonic vine's main body. The blood-sucking demonic vines were actually forcefully blown apart by the vigorous blood chi of the ancient god blood. It was like giving a weak person a great tonic. In the end, the person couldn't digest it and died. When the flower bud exploded, a fist-sized emerald green crystal also appeared. Yiguchen casually put it away. Next, Yiguchen's cold gaze swept across the gold and silver sabers as well as the two Ouyang brothers. Jin Huan and Yingu's charging footsteps suddenly stopped. An unprecedented look of shock appeared on their faces. The hand holding the sabers was slightly trembling. When they were in the ancient chaos wasteland, they might not even be able to defeat Yiguchen, let alone now. Ouyang Fengyun and Ouyang Tianji's faces were also stupefied. Their pupils had shrunk to the size of a needle's eye. Their breathing almost stopped. They felt as if an invisible hand was gripping their throats tightly. Next, it's your turn. Yiguchen brushed the tip of the nine-dragon thunder prison with his hand. The sound of the sword clanging. That was the sound of death. Chapter 1053. Murderous intent surged in Yiguchen's eyes. Ouyang Fengyun and Ouyang Tianji didn't need to be mentioned. They had obstructed Yiguchen many times and brought trouble to Yiguchen. Although Yiguchen didn't care about them, he still felt annoyed. As for the gold and silver blades, Yiguchen had already given them a chance. But the two of them didn't cherish it and still decided to kill Yiguchen. Yiguchen wouldn't hold back at all. Since you chose to attack, you must be prepared to be killed. Yiguchen poured his true chi into the nine-dragon thunder prison and an ear-piercing sword hum sounded. It was the knell of death. Damn it, how did you break free? Ouyang Fengyun's expression became unprecedentedly ugly and felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on his heart. The plant life in the labyrinth was extremely strange and powerful. They believed that Yiguchen wouldn't be able to break free from the blood-sucking demonic vines, which was why they were so arrogant. As for Ouyang Tianji, his performance was even worse and he was extremely terrified. If Ouyang Fengyun was said to be able to exchange a few blows with Yiguchen, but in front of Yiguchen, he could only be chopped up. Triple ultimate holy sword, reversal of stars and moon. Yiguchen displayed his sword moves and the star-breaking sword and moon sword were displayed at the same time. The scene of stars and moon appeared and swept towards Ouyang Fengyun and the others. Gold and silver blades, let's attack together. We might be able to fight against Dugu Wubai. Ouyang Fengyun roared and started to resist. Jin Huan and Yingu heard this and gritted their teeth and continued to attack. They already knew that their attitude just now had completely angered Yiguchen. Yiguchen wouldn't let them off so easily. Instead of stretching out his neck and waiting to be slaughtered, he might as well fight with all his might. Broken bone blade. Jin Huan slashed out with his blade, and a biting cold blade chi burst out. 6 Rin divine blade. Yingu attacked as well. 6 blade lights shot towards Yiguchen. Facing the attacks from the gold and silver blades, Yiguchen countered with a starry sun-flowing fire. The mighty sword chi seemed to have turned into a tide of magma, colliding with the attack of the gold and silver knives. Rumble. Another great battle broke out here. Yiguchen was fighting 1 against 3, and he was not at a disadvantage at all. As for Ouyang Tianji, the threat he posed to Yiguchen was almost zero. After a few dozen moves, Yiguchen didn't want to delay any longer and immediately used his ultimate move. The Qianyang Sword of Extinction and the Kuan Moon Sword of Extinction were unleashed together. Universe Extermination. Yiguchen swung his sword, and a destructive sword chi burst out. In an instant, it pierced through Ouyang Fengyun's chest, causing his chest to explode and his organs to fly everywhere. Bits of bloody flesh fell on Ouyang Tianji, who was at the side. His body was numb and he was trembling all over. "I hate." Ouyang Fengyun's eyes popped out, and his face twisted. His white clothes were stained with blood. His chest was pierced from the front to the back, and he felt a chill. Plop. Ouyang Fengyun, ranked 9th on the sword leaderboard, had fallen. Dugubai, I was once a disciple of Sacred Cliff College. You can't kill me. Ouyang Tianji was scared out of his wits, and his body trembled like a quail. He was truly afraid. Endless fear drowned his heart and soul. You seem to have left Sacred Cliff College a long time ago. You even went against Ling Yamoshu and the others during the 5 Academies tournament. Yi Guchen's tone was indifferent. No. Ouyang Tianji turned around and was about to escape. Yi Guchen casually stabbed out, and sword chi burst out, piercing through Ouyang Tianji's heart. Another person had fallen. Damn it. On the other side, Jin Huan and Yin Gu's bodies trembled. The 2 Ouyang brothers had fallen in the span of a few breaths, and they didn't have time to escape. It's your turn. Yi Guchen turned around and looked at the gold and silver blades. Dugubai will leave now. We'll definitely not provoke you in the future, Jin Huan said with a pale face. Yes. We'll take a detour if we see you in the future. How about that? Yin Gu hurriedly added. Yi Guchen sighed and said, I've already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Guchen's feet flashed, and a sword light flashed across the void, flying towards the gold and silver blades. Dugubai were also related to Mo Guangdao, who's ranked 5th on the sword leaderboard. If he knows that you killed us, he won't let you go. Seeing Yi Guchen's attack, their faces changed, and Jin Huan roared. Mo Guangdao? Yi Guchen's lips curled into a cold smile. He knew a little about this person. He was ranked 5th on the sword leaderboard, and his strength was extraordinary. This time, he had entered the sacred dynasty treasure together with them. But would Yi Guchen be afraid? Of course not. Not to mention the 5th on the sword leaderboard, even if it was the 1st on the sword leaderboard, Yi Guchen wouldn't be threatened. A scarlet Li trigram appeared in the void. Yi Guchen's sword edge broke the trigram, and his entire sword turned scarlet. With a stab, it was as if there was an explosive current sweeping out. Bone-shattering blade. Heavenly rock slash. The gold and silver blades naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for their deaths. They also used their ultimate moves. But the result was still as expected. Accompanied by heart-wrenching screams, Jin Huan and Yin Gu turned into 2 charred corpses in the explosive sword chi. Their charred faces were still frozen with deep regret and unwillingness. If they hadn't coveted the reputation of killing a natural saint, perhaps the result would have been completely different. Yi Guchen's sword edge shook, and the 2 charred corpses turned into dust and scattered. After killing these 4 people, Yi Guchen continued to the maze. Along the way, he also killed some strange plants and harvested some emerald green crystals. These emerald green crystals contained a thick aura of life, and it was quite good to use as healing medicine. Not long after, Yi Guchen once again sensed the sounds of fighting in front of him. He was slightly cautious and looked over. He saw a beautiful figure fighting with a strange plant. It's her. Seeing that person, Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows. That beautiful figure was none other than Tianxian College's Suki Miyazaki. But at this moment, Suki Miyazaki's appearance was slightly miserable, and she didn't have the image of a noble goddess from before. Her tight-fitting palace dress had many holes in it, revealing her snow-white skin. The hem of her dress was also torn, revealing her snow-white legs. And her opponent was a man-eating flower-like plant. From the flower bud, it continuously spat out sticky liquid, corroding Suki Miyazaki's delicate body. Suki Miyazaki could barely use her vital energy to prevent her skin from being damaged, but she couldn't prevent her palace dress from being corroded, so she was in a rather sorry state. Damn it! Suki Miyazaki gritted her teeth, and her beautiful face showed a touch of shame and anger. This man-eating flower was very strong, and even the divine dwelling heavens prodigies had a hard time dealing with it. As if sensing Yiguchin's presence, Suki Miyazaki's beautiful face turned to Yiguchin, and just as she was about to ask for help, she saw that it was Yiguchin. The words of help were choked in her throat. Her beautiful face alternated between green and white, and on the one hand, she was a little embarrassed because Yiguchin saw her sorry state at this moment. On the other hand, it was because she and Mu Xingzu were considered enemies, although they weren't the kind of enemies who fought to the death. And Yiguchin was Mu Xingzu's master. It was naturally very awkward to meet at this moment. Not to mention, she had looked down on Yiguchin many times, both openly and secretly. How could she have the nerve to ask Yiguchin for help? But if she didn't ask for help, the situation would be even worse. For a moment, Suki Miyazaki's pink face alternated between green and red, and her heart was in a mess. Chapter 1054. But compared to Suki Miyazaki, Yiguchin did not think so much. He almost did not hesitate and chose to make a move. One of the reasons was naturally because Tianxian College was in the camp of individual cultivators, and Suki Miyazaki was a prodigy in the camp of individual cultivators, so it was natural for her to lend a helping hand. Secondly, it was also because when Zimo and the others were bullied by Inju in the Sword Catacomb, Suki Miyazaki stepped in at the right time to stop them. Although she did not help too much, it was still a favor. As for the relationship between Suki Miyazaki and Mu Xingzu, Yiguchin did not think too much about it. As long as there was not too much hatred, it did not matter. Therefore, Yiguchin did not hesitate. With the 9-dragon thunder prison in hand, he joined the battle. Seeing Yiguchin make a move without hesitation, Suki Miyazaki bit her red lips. Her face could not help but heat up slightly. It was because of shame. Not only did she underestimate Yiguchin's strength before, she also underestimated Yiguchin's character. In contrast, Suki Miyazaki felt like a bitter woman. With Yiguchin's intervention, the man-eating demon flower was destroyed in less than 15 minutes. Goodbye, thank you. Suki Miyazaki's tone was a little jerky and unnatural. It's no problem, we're all on the same side. Yiguchin waved his hand and did not care. I had some friction with Mu Xingzu before. Suki Miyazaki wanted to say something but stopped. It's okay, that girl also needs a good opponent to hone her skills, Yiguchin said calmly. Mu Xingzu also told him that although Suki Miyazaki always targeted her, she did not use any underhanded means. It was just a normal confrontation. Yiguchin naturally did not care about such things. Also, I've been prejudiced against you many times. Suki Miyazaki bit her lip and told the truth. Then you don't have to worry about it. Yiguchin shook his head and laughed. Was he someone who cared about this kind of criticism? Looking at Yiguchin's carefree and bright smile, Suki Miyazaki felt a little ashamed. Her temperament was indeed much worse than Yiguchin's. All right, let's clean up. After all. Yiguchin paused and looked away. It was only then that Suki Miyazaki realized that the palace dress she was wearing was torn in many places, revealing her fair skin. Her ears instantly turned red. She hurriedly hid in a dark corner and changed into a palace dress. After tidying up, he reunited with Yiguchin. However, her face was still red. It made her, who had always had a noble temperament, look a little shy and cute. What do you plan to do next? Yiguchin's expression was calm. Can I go with you? Suki Miyazaki asked tentatively. She realized that Yiguchin could give her a sense of security. All right. Yiguchin nodded slightly. Then the two of them walked together. Along the way, they encountered some strange plants and killed them along the way. We should be out of this maze soon. After another hour, Yiguchin murmured. His astral perception could now extend further, which meant that they were already at the edge of the maze. Suki Miyazaki secretly sighed in relief. At this time, there was movement in front of them again. There were also voices. Yiguchin signaled Suki Miyazaki to be careful with his eyes. Then he slowly approached them. Yiguchin breathed a sigh of relief when he saw those figures. Suki Miyazaki also let down her guard. This was because they saw two familiar figures. Kenpo and Jianxi. Brother Kenpo. Yi Guchen stepped forward. Kenpo and Jianxi immediately turned around vigilantly. When they saw that it was Yi Guchen, they sighed in relief. Kenpo was even more surprised. Brother Dugu, I knew you'd be fine. What are you doing here? Kenpo and Jianxi were silent when they heard that. Yi Guchen looked around and suddenly saw a corpse lying on the ground. Swordsman 10. Yi Guchen's eyes suddenly focused. Suki Miyazaki also covered her mouth with her hand. She looked extremely surprised. One of the swordsmen had actually died. This was definitely not a small matter. To be able to become one of the 13 swordsmen, no matter what, he definitely had some skills. It was absolutely impossible for him to die so easily. Moreover, Swordsman 10 was the swordsman of the individual cultivators' camp. But whether they believed it or not, the figure lying in the pool of blood with a mask on his face was undoubtedly Swordsman 10. What happened? Yi Guchen stepped forward. He did not believe that a swordsman would die in the hands of those strange plants. Yi Guchen took a closer look and found that Swordsman 10's throat had been slit by a sword. There was no sign of resistance at all. More importantly, that sword mark. Yi Guchen wanted to say something but stopped. He felt that the sword mark was slightly familiar. The swordsmanship shown by the sword mark should be the fatal 13 swords. Kenpo's tone was very heavy. It's really... Yi Guchen was a little surprised. No wonder he felt a trace of familiarity. Because when they were in the sword catacomb, Jian Shisan had once used the fatal 13 swords to spar with him. And now, Swordsman 10 had been killed by the fatal 13 swords. There was no doubt about the result. Could Jian Shisan be a spy from the aristocratic families? Suki Miyazaki could not help but ask. No, I don't believe it. Little 13 can't be a spy from the aristocratic families. Jianxi screamed. He did not want to believe it at all. Yi Guchen frowned and fell into deep thought. He remembered Jian Shisan's warning to him at that time. If you want to live, don't participate in the sword master battle. At that time, Yi Guchen was slightly puzzled as to why Jian Shisan would say that. Now, it seemed that if Jian Shisan was a spy from the aristocratic families, then everything would make sense. No, why don't you believe little 13? He has been alone since he was young. How could he betray us and join the aristocratic families? Jianxi argued vehemently. But other than Jian Shisan, who else would use the fatal 13 swords? Suki Miyazaki asked. Jianxi was speechless. Yi Guchen thought in his heart and said, although this wound is from the fatal 13 swords, it does not have the aura of the lifeless swordsmanship. Of course, it could be that he did not use it. Kenpo suddenly asked, if you were Jian Shisan, would you be stupid enough to use your signature swordsmanship to kill people? As soon as he said that, the atmosphere fell silent. Jianxi said in surprise, yes, this is obviously the enemy's plan to sow discord. They want us to misunderstand little 13 and even attack him. That is possible. After all, little 13 and Jian Jinghong are two people who can threaten Jiankue. Kenpo also said, no matter what, let's take one step at a time. Don't jump to conclusions. Yi Guchen said. He had a feeling that things were not so simple. And Jian Shisan's warning to him. What was Jian Shisan's position? I knew it. The aristocratic families must be plotting something. Unfortunately, we also have a trump card. Kenpo sneered. Oh, what is it? Yi Guchen was a little curious. Kenpo smiled faintly and did not say much. In another place in the maze, a masked swordsman was advancing. He was Jian 12, a swordsman of the aristocratic families. His strength was not weak. At this moment, there was a sudden movement behind him. Jian 12 turned around abruptly. When he saw the person, he could not help but feel relieved. He shook his head and said with a smile, so it's you. You scared me. However, as soon as he said that, a sword light flashed past and pierced through Jian 12's heart. Sword 12 covered his bleeding chest with his hand. The pupils under the mask widened, revealing extreme disbelief. You why? Thump. Jian 12 fell to the ground. Another swordsman had fallen. Who should I kill next? This figure smiled faintly and turned to leave. Chapter 1055. Sacred Dynasty Legacy. Inside the Labyrinth. Massacres were happening all the time. Battles between the heaven prides and the strange plants. Battles between the heaven prides of the four empires. Or perhaps it was the internal strife of the Sword Dynasty. All in all, many heaven prides had died in the labyrinth. As for Yi Guqin and the others, they were not in much danger. Yi Guqin's strength was needless to say, and Tsuki Miyazaki was also a divine-dwelling heaven pride. There were also the two sword sons, Kenpo and Jianshi. With the four of them together, they were extremely safe. All the strange plants they encountered along the way were directly killed. Some of the heaven prides from the other empires also retreated without the slightest hesitation when they saw such a luxurious lineup. After another hour, when Yi Guqin and the others walked out of another passage, the path ahead suddenly opened up, and there were no more twists and turns. We're finally out. Tsuki Miyazaki patted her breasts and breathed a sigh of relief. After all, the labyrinth was too oppressive. I wonder how the others are. Yi Guqin couldn't help but worry about Mu Xingzu and the people from Sacred Cliff College. Brother Dugu, let's continue to go deeper, Kenpo said. Yi Guqin nodded slightly. The entire underground space was extremely vast. After walking out of the labyrinth, Yi Guqin vaguely sensed that there seemed to be an extremely strong life aura in the distance. That aura was the same as the emerald crystal Yi Guqin had obtained. Could it be the longevity ancient tree? Yi Guqin's heart sank. The longevity ancient tree core was very important to him, and he couldn't afford to lose it. I seem to have sensed a treasure land, Yi Guqin said, and rushed straight towards the place with rich life energy. Kenpo and the others followed closely. Not long after, Yi Guqin saw a group of people surrounding an ancient tree. The ancient tree was incomparably huge, and its trunk was more than 100 feet wide, like a pillar supporting the sky. The crown of the tree was like a giant umbrella, supporting the sky of this underground space. On the branches of the tree crown, a dozen emerald green fruits could be vaguely seen. They were like green stars, emitting a hazy halo. It's the longevity ancient tree, Kenpo exclaimed. The longevity ancient tree was the same level as the enlightenment ancient tree. Unlike the enlightenment ancient tree, the longevity ancient tree's greatest value lay in its boundless life essence. If it wasn't destroyed, the longevity ancient tree was ancient longevity, the longevity ancient tree, ancient tree, ancient longevity ancient tree. It was said that as long as one did not completely lose their life, no matter how serious their injuries were, as long as they consumed a longevity fruit, they would be able to recover. And now, there were more than a dozen longevity ancient fruits on the branches of the longevity ancient tree. Not to mention the prodigies present, even the tribulation sages would be tempted. However, Yi Guqin also noticed that the prodigies surrounding the longevity ancient tree didn't directly go forward to snatch the longevity ancient tree. There must be something wrong. Just as Yi Guqin and the others were about to approach, a surprised shout came from afar. Master, we're here. It was Mu Xingzu and the others, followed by the Sacred Cliff College disciples. Yi Guqin looked over. Sacred Cliff College's team had lost some people. However, the most important thing was that Ling Moyin, Ling Emoshu, Xuanlian, Kong Kong, Han Lingxian, and the others were all there. Yi Guqin heaved a sigh of relief. Why are you here as well? And why are you with my master? Mu Xingzhu's pretty eyes landed on Gong Luiyue, and her face was filled with hostility. Tsuki Miyazaki was a little embarrassed. She couldn't bring herself to say that she met Yi Guqin. Seeing the embarrassment on Tsuki Miyazaki's face, Mu Xingzhu couldn't help but look at her and Yi Guqin suspiciously. Master, don't tell me. Mu Xingzhu said with jealousy. It's just a coincidence. Yi Guqin waved his hand casually. After all, Mu Xingzhu and Tsuki Miyazaki didn't have any deep grudges. Therefore, other than bickering, they didn't have any conflicts. After everyone gathered, Yi Guqin and the others also approached the longevity ancient tree. At that moment, Yiguchen realized why the prodigies around him didn't go to fight for the longevity fruit. The reason for that was because the entire longevity ancient tree was surrounded by a spirit formation. That spirit formation was so huge that it was blocking everyone outside. Under the longevity ancient tree, there were hundreds of strange ancient corpses sitting cross-legged. They looked like old monks meditating. It was a hair-raising sight. It's so strange. Yiguchen frowned. Yiguchen and the others' arrival naturally attracted a lot of attention. When these sky prides saw Yiguchen's face clearly, their faces were filled with extreme shock. Isn't that the natural saint, Dugubai? Why is he still alive? Wasn't he surrounded by the beast tide? Yeah, and those sacred Cliff College disciples. Why are they still alive? Many prodigies looked at Yiguchen and the others in disbelief. They felt as if they had seen a ghost. After all, they had seen with their own eyes that Yiguchen was framed by Chao Hu of the Molo dynasty and surrounded by the beast tide with the entire sacred Cliff College team. Logically speaking, even a divine dwelling prodigy wouldn't be able to survive such a beast tide. They couldn't understand how Yiguchen had managed to break out of the encirclement. Why are you still alive? An extremely sharp voice sounded from the crowd. It was filled with disbelief. Yiguchen's eyes instantly turned as cold as ice when he heard the voice. The person who had spoken was none other than the pink playboy. His demonic face was filled with shock and disbelief. He and Chao Hu had separated after breaking out of the beast tide, so he didn't know about Chao Hu's death. The pink playboy was extremely shocked when he saw Yiguchen and the others appear in front of him alive. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'll let you accompany Chao Hu now. Yiguchen smiled. However, that smile was extremely cold. Swoosh. Without any nonsense or hesitation, Yiguchen summoned the 9-dragon thunder prison and directly attacked. The pink playboy was already a dead man in his eyes. The pink playboy's eyes were filled with horror. He didn't expect Chao Hu to be killed by Yiguchen. He couldn't even deal with Yiguchen when they were in the ancient chaos wasteland. Not to mention that Yiguchen's strength had greatly increased. He could kill him effortlessly. TSK, looks like the pink playboy is going to die. Some of the surrounding prodigies were also watching the show. They were also surprised by Yiguchen's thunderous methods. There was no hesitation at all. If you tricked me, I'll definitely kill you. This was one of Yiguchen's rules. There were also some prodigies from the Molo dynasty present, but they were also watching the show. Some of the prodigies from the other 3 dynasties still had some friendship. However, there was almost no friendship between the Molo dynasty's prodigies. They wouldn't help the pink playboy just because he was a prodigy from the same dynasty. Even Chao Hu was only willing to help the pink playboy because of the benefits. Just as Yiguchen's sword was about to pierce the pink playboy, the pink playboy shouted in panic, "Princess, save me!" There was a loud clang. A pitch-black sickle blocked Yiguchen's sword. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows and looked at the cold figure in front of the pink playboy. You want to stop me? Yiguchen's tone was cold. The person in front of the pink playboy was Princess Luo Ho, who ranked second on the blood ranking of the Molo dynasty. Princess Luo Ho wore half a mask, revealing her fiery red lips. She was extremely cold. Her skin was smooth and only a few pieces of armor covered her skin. She was so sexy that it made people's nostrils bleed. However, no one dared to look at Princess Luo Ho too much. Princess Luo Ho was too famous. Chapter 1056. Her identity, background, and strength were impeccable. On top of that, she had a cold and bloodthirsty personality. Princess Luo Ho was definitely one of the prodigies in the sacred dynasty legacy that should not be provoked. Even Yiguchen was a little surprised. Given Princess Luo Ho's personality, she should not have helped Pink Playboy, even if he was a prodigy of the Mola dynasty. However, Yiguchen did not know that. The reason why Princess Luo Ho saved the reddish gentleman was because the reddish gentleman had offered the map fragment he obtained to the Mola dynasty. That was why the Mola dynasty could participate in the sacred dynasty legacy. In addition, Princess Luo Ho had previously agreed to help Pink Playboy deal with Yiguchen. Therefore, Princess Luoho would naturally intervene now. With Princess Luoho as his shield, the fear on Pink Playboy's face immediately dissipated and was replaced by a calm and smug sneer. Dugubai, I admit that you're not weak, but you're only a Tiandi Lingqiao. You can't do whatever you want here. You deserve to die. The Sacred Cliff College prodigies glared at him. Xuanlian and Ling Yamoshu, the two divine dwelling prodigies, even took a step forward. Pink Playboy's expression changed slightly when he saw that they were about to intervene. At that moment, Princess Luoho opened her red lips and said coldly, if anyone else from Sacred Cliff College participates, the prodigies of the Mola dynasty are not to be trifled with. As soon as Princess Luoho finished speaking, the few Mola dynasty prodigies present braced themselves and stepped forward. If it was just Pink Playboy, they could just sit back and watch the show. However, since Princess Luoho had spoken, the Mola dynasty prodigies had no choice but to step forward. After all, they were still part of the Mola dynasty. That's the godson of the Mola dynasty's heaven divination sect. Looks like Sacred Cliff College won't be able to take advantage of him. Some of the people present began to discuss as they watched the Mola dynasty prodigies step forward. The heaven divination sect's godson was dressed in a black sorcerer robe and looked eerie. Just like the demonic beast sect, the heaven divination sect was one of the biggest sects in the Mola dynasty. This heaven wizard sect's disciple was also ranked 6th on the blood ranking of the Maro dynasty. His strength was not to be underestimated. In addition, the other geniuses of the Maluo dynasty were all on the blood ranking. It could be said that if Xuanlian and Ling Yamoshu interfered, the heaven witchcraft godchild and the others would stop them out of respect for Princess Luoho. Pink Gentleman seemed to have sensed that the situation had been settled and that his life was no longer in danger. He laughed heartily and said, Dugubai, I know that you really want to take my life, but it seems that it's impossible. There was a hint of mockery in the reddish gentleman's tone. On the side of Sacred Cliff College, the faces of many disciples were ashen. On the other hand, Yiguchen's expression didn't change. His eyes were as dark as a bottomless abyss. Are you bent on stopping me? Yiguchen's tone was cold. No matter what, you can't touch him in the Sacred Dynasty's treasure. Princess Luoho's tone was equally cold. Fine. Yiguchen smiled coldly. Hearing this, the people around shook their heads, thinking that Yiguchen had given in. The people of Sacred Cliff College were silent. They didn't believe that Yiguchen was a coward. Sure enough, Yiguchen's eyes were filled with coldness after he said the word, good. But today, I want him dead. As soon as his words fell, Yiguchen's aura burst out, and his vigorous true chi poured into the 9-dragon thunder prison. Accompanied by a dragon's roar, the soul of a thunder dragon appeared from the sword and charged towards Princess Luoho and Pink Playboy. Yiguchen didn't care about the princess who was ranked 2nd on the blood ranking. How dare you! Princess Luoho shouted coldly and waved the death scythe in her hand. Waves of pitch-black death chi spread out. This death scythe was also a quasi-heavenly tribulation divine weapon with extraordinary power. There was a roar, and the death chi and lightning burst out alternately. 7 slashes of the black moon. Princess Luoho waved the death scythe, and 7 black arcs of light burst out from the scythe, slashing toward Yiguchen. Yiguchen's sword vibrated, and the Ganyang sword and the star-breaking sword were displayed. They turned into a meteor and collided with Princess Luoho. There was a loud roar, and Yiguchen's figure was pushed back. Princess Luoho's strength was at the 3rd layer of the divine dwelling stage. And Yiguchen only had Tiandi Lingqiao when he didn't use the sky-devouring secret technique. However, such a collision caused the surrounding sky prides to be shaken. The legend of a natural saint is true. Although she only has a heaven and earth spirit bridge cultivation, she can compete with the heaven prides of the divine dwelling stage. And Princess Luoho is not an ordinary divine dwelling stage expert. Her cultivation has reached the 3rd layer of the divine dwelling stage. Although Yiguchen was pushed back, his performance surprised everyone. Pink Gentleman's heart was filled with dread. Since Yiguchen could compete with Princess Luoho, it would be a simple matter for him to deal with Pink Gentleman. However, what made Pink Gentleman feel relieved was that at least Princess Luoho could easily block Yi Guqin. "If that's all you have, save your strength," Princess Luoho said indifferently. Princess Luoho didn't want to use her true chi strength before obtaining a treasure. Yi Guqin responded to Princess Luoho with his sword. The two of them once again engaged in a fierce battle. Watching the two people fighting, the surrounding heaven prides were all paying attention. One was the infamous princess of the Moro dynasty, ranked second on the blood ranking. The other was a natural saint who rose to fame in the Sword dynasty, Dugubai. Both of them had a strong reputation. Azura Blood C Level 18. Yi Guqin brought out the Azura Sword Dao's domain of Sword Dao, and terrifying sword chi turned into a sea of blood. Death's cry. Pure black true chi burst out of Princess Luoho's delicate body, causing the void to shake. She slashed out with the death's scythe in her hand, and it sounded like the death's cry, which was extremely terrifying. Their attacks collided, causing the surroundings to shake. At the same time, Yi Guqin brought out the edgeless Sword Dao's domain of Sword Dao, the Gravity Sword domain. Princess Luoho immediately felt her body sink, as if there was a huge force pressing down on her. Not only that, but she also vaguely felt an extreme sense of danger in her heart. Just as the Gravity Sword domain was brought out, Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. The Azura Blood C Level 18 faintly overlapped with the Gravity Sword domain. Although they hadn't completely merged, the faint power was already enough to make Princess Luoho's cold face change color. She hurriedly dodged to the side, avoiding the attack. However, at the same time, Pink Gentleman was exposed to Yi Guqin without reservation. Yi Guqin was waiting for this moment. Die! Without the slightest bit of mercy, Yi Guqin brought along the power of the two great sword domains and crushed towards the Pink Gentleman. Rumble! The power of the dual sword domain crushed the void inch by inch. Pink Gentleman could only watch helplessly as his body disintegrated inch by inch and turned into a pool of blood. The pain that came from the depths of his soul made Pink Gentleman's demonic face contort to the extreme. Then he let out a gut-wrenching cry. No! Pink Playboy's eyes bulged and became bloodshot. Endless pain flooded his mind. Finally, under the dazed gazes of all the sky prides, there was a loud thud. Pink Gentleman's head exploded like a watermelon. His entire body was crushed into a pool of blood and dust by the power of the dual sword domain. For a moment, there was dead silence. All the sky prides were shocked. Chapter 1057. Blood-colored dust floated in the air. That was the only trace left behind by the Pink Playboy. Without any resistance, the Pink Gentleman was directly smashed into pieces. The strong visual impact made everyone speechless. Then they looked at Yi Guqin in horror. What kind of terrifying technique was that? Even Princess Luoho, whose expression had turned ugly, could not help but ask, exactly what sort of technique was that? The reason why Princess Luoho dodged was because she sensed the threat. But she didn't expect Yi Guqin's move to be so powerful that it killed the Pink Playboy instantly. Even Princess Luoho couldn't save him in time. The surrounding sky prides looked at Yi Guqin as if they were looking at a monster. Not to mention the others, even Yi Guqin himself was in a daze for a moment. He had only used a little of the ultimate sword domain's power. He hadn't even completely combined the power of the two sword domains. Yi Guqin didn't want to expose the ultimate sword domain too early, so he only used a part of it. But even this part of the power was shocking. Not only did it force Princess Luoho to retreat, but it also killed the Pink Playboy instantly. It could be said that even Yi Guqin didn't expect it. It's too powerful. Is this the attack technique of the Heaven Mountain Sword Tribe? Yi Guqin exclaimed in his heart. Just a part of the dual sword domain was already so powerful. What about a complete dual sword domain? After the fusion of 3 sword domains and 4 sword domains, how powerful would they be? Yi Guqin was suddenly looking forward to it. Now that the Pink Playboy had died, Yi Guqin could finally untie a knot in his heart. At least, he could avenge those sacred Cliff College disciples who died because of him. Princess Luoho's expression was cold. She said that she would protect the Pink Playboy. In the end, Yiguchen killed him in front of her. Sensing Princess Luoho's cold attitude, Yiguchen said calmly, "If Princess wants to fight, I will accompany you to the end." In other words, if she wanted to fight, he would fight. Princess Luoho gripped the death scythe tightly. She really wanted to behead this guy who had offended her dignity. However, Yiguchen's methods made her somewhat wary. She had a feeling that Yiguchen was hiding something very deep. In addition, she still wanted to fight for the longevity fruit and other opportunities. It was indeed not a good time to fight with Yiguchen. Thinking of this, Princess Luoho withdrew her aura like a venomous snake sheathing its fangs. Princess Luoho actually admitted defeat? Seeing Princess Luoho's attitude, everyone was stunned. This was the first time this cold and bloodthirsty princess had suffered such a setback. "Dubai, I'll remember you," Princess Luoho said coldly. Yiguchen had definitely left a deep impression on her. Yiguchen was happy to see Princess Luoho withdraw her fighting spirit. There was no direct enmity between him and Princess Luoho, and Yiguchen did not want to provoke such a powerful enemy for no reason. "Dugubai, you really know how to stir up trouble." At that moment, a faint voice rang out nearby. An extremely handsome young man in white walked over. It was Hua Wuxiu and a group of geniuses. Shengguan Jingshan, Yin Zhu, Jiang Fengmian, and the others were among them. Hua Xingjie, Yin Wufeng, Yushuang Yan, and the other geniuses followed closely behind. Although they were slightly weaker, they did not want to miss out on the opportunities left behind by the Sacred Dynasty. Seeing Hua Wuxiu and the others arrive, the people from Sacred Cliff College were all on guard. "Alright, although I will definitely fight with Dugubai, for now, it's better to focus on the opportunities of the longevity tree," Hua Wuxiu said with a smile. "Indeed." Yiguchen nodded. He also needed the longevity wood core. Outside the longevity tree, the tense atmosphere temporarily dissipated. All the geniuses began to circle the longevity tree's array formation and try. But no matter what, they could not enter. As soon as they stepped in, they would be repelled by the array formation. This array formation seems to be a sealing array formation. It has transferred the life essence of the longevity tree to another place. That's why it's isolated from the outside world, Yiguchen muttered to himself. Although he did not know much about array formations, he still had some knowledge about them. After all, he still had the 5 Emperors Cosmo Sword Array and the 6 Dao Ashura Sword Array. "Oh right." Yiguchen's eyes flashed as he suddenly thought of something. He flipped his hand and took out a piece of emerald green crystal from his origin ring. It was what he had obtained after killing those strange plants. "Since this array formation repels foreign objects, it should not repel my own life essence." With that thought, Yiguchen infused a wisp of true qi into the emerald green crystal. In an instant, Yiguchen was surrounded by a ball of green light. Yiguchen's heart skipped a beat as he stepped into the array formation. The surrounding geniuses all noticed Yiguchen's action. "Is this going to work?" Yin Zhu and the others sneered. They could not enter the array formation no matter what they tried. How could Yiguchen crack it so easily? But in the next moment, the sneers on Yin Zhu and the others' faces froze. It was rather laughable. This was because Yiguchen's figure had directly stepped into the formation. There was no repulsion at all. He actually succeeded? The surrounding geniuses were tongue-tied. After a brief moment of shock, some of the geniuses who had killed those strange plants hurriedly took out the emerald green crystals they had obtained. As for those who did not obtain any crystals, they were petrified. "Do you all have any? If you don't, I'll give them to you." Yiguchen saw that this method was feasible and turned around to shout. Most of the Sacred Cliff College disciples had some, but a few did not. Yiguchen waved his hand and scattered many crystals. Along the way, he had killed many strange plants and obtained many crystals. "Enter!" Hua Wuxiu and the others also took out their crystals and stepped into the array formation. Then, about half of the geniuses entered the array formation at an extremely fast speed. Only the other half of the geniuses who did not have any crystals were left. It was too late to even snatch them. They could only watch as Yiguchen and the others fought for the treasures. As soon as they stepped into the array formation, all the geniuses rushed towards the longevity ancient tree at an extremely fast speed. Their target was naturally the dozen or so longevity fruits on the tree crown. The geniuses of the Sword Dynasty needed to obtain the longevity fruits to increase their score for the Sword Sun position. As for the geniuses of the other dynasties, they would not give up on treasures like the longevity fruits. Something's not right. At that moment, Yiguchin suddenly sensed a strange soul fluctuation. An ancient corpse that was sitting cross-legged suddenly exploded and threw a punch at Yiguchin. Yiguchin blocked the attack with the 9-dragon thunder prison in front of him. The ancient corpse's fist landed on the sword blade. A burst of energy instantly exploded, causing Yiguchin's arms to tremble and his entire body to retreat rapidly. Such powerful energy. It must have been at least a supremacy when it was alive. Yiguchin's eyes were extremely solemn. Although the ancient corpse was dead and could not use its true energy, its supremacy physical body alone was enough to pose a fatal threat to these geniuses. The ancient corpse's explosions seemed to have caused a chain reaction. The hundreds of ancient corpses in the array formation woke up one after another. Although there were no true energy fluctuations, each ancient corpse was at least a supremacy when they were alive. In an instant, the geniuses in the array formation were in a desperate situation. Chapter 1058. The ancient corpse of a heavenly palace sovereign didn't have any true chi. Its physical strength alone was enough to kill a divine dwelling stage prodigy. After all, not all prodigies had an abnormal physical body like Yiguchin's. However, even with Yiguchin's perfect physical body and ancient god body, after receiving the punch from the ancient corpse, he felt his arms go numb. He could not bear it any longer. Even Yiguchin, who had an unparalleled physical body, had such a reaction. As for the other prodigies who didn't have strong physical bodies, it was needless to say. Boom! An ancient corpse clenched its fist and punched at one of the prodigies. That prodigy couldn't block the ancient corpse's punch even if his true chi burst out and resisted with all his strength. With a loud explosion, that prodigy's physical body was directly smashed into pieces by the fist, directly exploding into smithereens. For a time, miserable howls and angry roars could be heard endlessly. Pieces of flesh and blood splattered everywhere. As for the prodigies who were blocked by the formation and couldn't enter, they all retreated far away and immediately fled when they saw that the situation wasn't right. This is troublesome. Not to mention the ordinary prodigies, even top prodigies like Hua Wuxiu and Princess Luo Ho couldn't gain the slightest advantage in the face of these ancient corpses and were beaten back repeatedly. Opposite Yiguchin, the ancient corpse punched again. Yiguchin's ancient god powers surged and collided with the ancient corpse's punch. With a loud bang, the air exploded, and Yiguchin's body was pushed back again. What a powerful force. Even with the ancient god power, I can't gain the slightest advantage, Yiguchin muttered to himself. His expression was a little grave. This was because there were hundreds of ancient corpses here. It wouldn't be long before all the prodigies were killed, and the ancient corpses would naturally focus their attacks on him. At that time, how could Yiguchin withstand the attacks of hundreds of ancient corpses? Do I have to give up? Yiguchin gritted his teeth. The longevity ancient tree could be said to be an extremely rare opportunity. Yiguchin also needed the longevity wood core to refine his clone. If he missed this opportunity, who knew how long he would have to wait before he could gather all the materials again? As for Yiguchin, he had less than 3 years to go to the Heavenly God Sword sect, deal with Di Haotian, and rescue Su Jianshi. Yiguchin needed to refine a clone as soon as possible so that he could control the god-devouring demonic sword. Just as Yiguchin was deep in thought, Su Qingyu's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Yiguchin, didn't you detect that the soul fluctuations of these ancient corpses are very strange? Senior Su, you mean a soul attack? Yiguchin's eyes lit up when he heard this. These ancient corpses were already dead. There must be a reason for them to awaken now. The only possibility was the strange soul fluctuation Yiguchin had detected earlier. These prodigies were all attacking with true chi, so it was very difficult for them to destroy the ancient corpse. Thinking of this, Yiguchen urged the chaotic sea of consciousness in his mind. Above his sea of consciousness, the meteorite demonic butterfly flapped its wings. Chaotic soul power surged and condensed into a beam of astral soul light that shot toward the ancient corpse's head. The ancient corpse's head had a soul defense that ordinary soul attacks couldn't penetrate. However, Yiguchen had a special sea of consciousness. His chaotic soul power was far stronger than ordinary soul power. In an instant, the astral soul light pierced through the defense. The ancient corpse's head was shattered, and its soul power was extinguished. The entire ancient corpse collapsed to the ground. Success! Yiguchen was elated. He condensed astral soul light and killed the ancient corpse in front of him. Yiguchen's abnormal behavior also caused the surrounding prodigies to react. It's a soul attack. These ancient corpses are afraid of soul attacks. Some prodigies shouted. All the prodigies began to use soul attacks. However, not all of them had chaotic soul power like Yiguchen. Therefore, it was a little troublesome to kill them. They weren't as straightforward as Yiguchen. Yiguchen's speed was also at the forefront. Seeing Yiguchen's speed, he rushed to the forefront. Hua Wuxiu, Shangguan Jingxin, Yin Ju, Princess Luoho, and the others didn't look too good. His soul power is indeed strange. Hua Wuxiu's eyes darkened. Previously, during the 5 Academies tournament, his eternal night sword domain couldn't suppress Yiguchen's divine soul perception. At that time, Hua Wuxiu knew that Yiguchen's sea of consciousness was also extraordinary. At this moment, all the prodigies were staring at Yiguchen while fighting with the ancient corpses. With Yiguchen's speed, he would definitely be the first to reach the treetop. It was also possible that he had taken all of the longevity fruits. Thinking of this, all the prodigies' faces turned gloomy. However, Yiguchen's next move stunned everyone. After breaking through the encirclement of the ancient corpses, Yiguchen didn't choose to climb to the treetop to pick the longevity fruits. Instead, he directly cut open the trunk of the longevity ancient tree and rushed in. Is that Dugu Wubai stupid? Yeah, why didn't he go and pick the longevity fruits? Everyone was puzzled by Yiguchen's actions. It was too abnormal and didn't make sense. Even Hua Wuxiu and the others were surprised. Yiguchen's actions were beyond their expectations. Most people knew the longevity ancient tree best because of the longevity fruits. As for the longevity wood core, not many people knew about it. Therefore, they didn't understand Yiguchen's actions. To Yiguchen, the longevity wood core was definitely 10,000 times more precious than the longevity fruits. Yiguchen naturally knew which was more important. Taking another step back, even if Yiguchen could pick all the longevity fruits first, he would definitely attract the jealousy of all the prodigies and be besieged by them. By then, how would Yiguchen have the chance to find the longevity wood core? Therefore, after careful consideration, Yiguchen still decided to find the longevity wood core first. While the other prodigies broke through the ancient corpses, Yiguchen had already gone deep into the longevity ancient tree. Yiguchen used the 9 Dragon Thunder Prison to open a path in the ancient tree. Not long after, Yiguchen finally arrived at the center of the ancient tree. At a glance, a crystal that looked like a green heart was located in the center of the ancient tree. The green crystal heart seemed to have been carved out of emerald, and it was releasing rich life energy. To a certain extent, it was similar to the emerald crystal that Yiguchen had obtained previously. However, there was a heaven and earth difference between the two of them in terms of the density of their life essence. Is this the longevity wood core? Yiguchen took a deep breath. He stepped forward and carefully plucked the longevity wood core. Waves of rich life essence surged into Yiguchen's body. His arms, which were slightly cracked after being bombarded by the ancient corpse, instantly recovered to their original state. No wonder you need the longevity wood core to refine your clone. Seeing that, Yiguchen could not help but exclaim in admiration. Perhaps only the life essence of the longevity wood core could continue to nourish the clone's body. After losing the longevity wood core, the longevity ancient tree would not die. After a long time, it would condense a new longevity wood core. Thank you. Yiguchen put away the longevity wood core and thanked the longevity ancient tree before retreating. Before he came out, Yiguchen deliberately frowned and pondered. Outside, Hua Wuxiu and the other prodigies had already broken through the ancient corpse's blockade and began to fight for the longevity fruit. Seeing Yiguchen come out with a bitter frown, the surrounding prodigies sneered and shook their heads. Obviously, they mistakenly thought that Yiguchen had gained nothing. Although the longevity wood core is the most important opportunity, it's still very useful to me. I can't reveal it, so the longevity fruit is also something I must obtain. Yiguchen used so near, yet worlds apart. In a flash, he landed on the top of the tree. He also joined the fight for the longevity fruit. Chapter 1059. Dugubai, you didn't gain anything, so now you want to fight for the longevity fruit? Inju and the others said coldly. They naturally didn't want Yiguchen to join the battle. If you say any more, I'll send you to accompany Ouyang Fengyun, Yiguchen said coldly. You killed Ouyang Fengyun? Inju and Shangguan Jingshan's expressions changed. How could they not understand the meaning behind Yiguchen's words? Dugubai, you're indeed crazy. No matter how Ouyang Fengyun targeted you, he's still a heaven pride of the Sword Dynasty. How could you not show him any mercy? Hua Wuxiu said indifferently. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the surrounding Sword Dynasty heaven prides changed as they looked at Yiguchen. It had to be said that Hua Wuxiu was indeed powerful. He wouldn't let go of any opportunity to attack Yiguchen. Ah, so you mean I'm going to surrender and let Ouyang Fengyun take my life? Yiguchen said coldly. So you're saying that Jin Huan and Yingu were killed by you? At this moment, a rough and cold voice sounded. The one who spoke was a man with a rough face and a tiger-headed sword in his hand. His aura was domineering and powerful. He was also an extremely powerful heaven pride of the divine dwelling stage. Overlord Sword Dynasty, Mo Guangdao. Yiguchen fixed his gaze on him. Mo Guangdao was ranked 5th on the sword list of the Overlord Sword Dynasty. He was extremely powerful. When they killed the gold and silver swords, they had said that Mo Guangdao would avenge them. It seemed that it was the person in front of him. So it was you who killed Jin Huan and Yingu. I have some friendship with them. How do you think we should settle this score? Mo Guangdao said coldly. As the 5th on the sword list, he definitely had a strong deterrent force. So be it. If you want to settle the score, come at me. Yiguchen's expression was indifferent. He did not back down at all. It was clearly Jin Huan and Yingu who wanted to kill him first. Yiguchen had once given them a chance to live, but they did not cherish it. Now, he wanted to settle the score with Yiguchen. What was this? Heh, I've heard that the natural-born saints of the Sword Dynasty have incomparably arrogant personalities. Today, I've finally seen it for myself. I wonder if your strength matches your tone? Mo Guangdao was so angry that he laughed. He was also an incomparably arrogant person. In addition to his own strength, he was also an existence that could sweep away all the supreme talents in the tyrannical Saber Dynasty. How could he stand Yiguchen's provocation? Therefore, he did not hesitate at all. He held the tiger-headed saber in his hand and slashed at Yiguchen. If you want to fight, let's fight. Yiguchen didn't back down either. The 9-dragon thunder prison in his hands swept out and clashed with Mo Guangdao. The chaotic battle between the supreme talents began again. Everyone attacked each other while trying to snatch the longevity fruit. All kinds of skills and moves shook the void and dazzled in all directions. Sky Tiger Gold Shattering Slash. Mo Guangdao's divine dwelling stage chi exploded and poured into the tiger-headed saber. A Tiger King phantom shot out. He slashed at Yiguchen, and the surging saber chi transformed into a heavenly tiger that roared and charged at Yiguchen. Third Ultimate Sacred Sword, Universe Annihilation. Yiguchen displayed 2 sword moves in a row, and the 2 merged into one. A destructive wave spread out and collided with Mo Guangdao's attack. In an instant, an explosive force spread out. Yiguchen took advantage of the shock wave to retreat. He used so close, yet worlds apart, and rushed toward the longevity fruit closest to him. Yi Guqin naturally couldn't be entangled with Mo Guangdao. His main goal was to obtain the longevity fruit. Yin Ju was already close to the longevity fruit. Just as he was about to pick it, he felt a sharp sword chi about to fall on the back of his head. Damn it, Duguwubai! Yin Ju's expression immediately changed, and he dodged to the side. Yi Guqin took advantage of the situation to pick a longevity fruit. Yin Ju was so angry that his face turned red and twisted. He originally thought that Mo Guangdao would firmly restrain Yi Guqin, but he didn't expect an accident to happen. Even Mo Guangdao was taken aback for a moment. He originally thought that Yi Guqin would fight with him, but who would have thought that Yi Guqin's goal was still the longevity fruit? Mo Guangdao, you can fight with me if you want, but don't even think about getting a single longevity fruit. Yi Guqin laughed. Mo Guangdao obviously knew that now was not the time to fight with Yi Guqin, so he turned to fight for the longevity fruit. Next, it was the battle between the geniuses. Guqin relied on, so close, yet worlds apart, and his powerful attacks to obtain 3 longevity fruits in a row. One had to know that there were only a dozen longevity fruits on the entire tree crown. Yi Guqin alone obtained 3 longevity fruits, which was already an extremely shocking number. After obtaining 3 longevity fruits, Yi Guqin didn't take the initiative to fight for them. He knew that 3 longevity fruits was already the bottom line. If Yi Guqin obtained more, he would definitely be attacked from all sides. Even if Yi Guqin wasn't afraid, it would still be troublesome. Moreover, to become the sword's son, the most important thing was to find the fruit of the holy path. That was the most important thing, and the longevity fruit was just a bonus. Besides Yi Guqin, Kenpo, Jianxi, Xuanlian, and Mu Xingzu also obtained a longevity fruit each. Hua Wuxiu, Princess Luo Ho, Mo Guangdao, and the others also obtained 1 each. On the other hand, Shangguan Jingshan, Yin Ju, and the others didn't obtain a single longevity fruit. Damn it, Dugubai, how dare you monopolize 3 longevity fruits? Shangguan Jingshan and Yin Ju were both indignant. Even Hua Wuxiu frowned and said, Dugubai, you're too greedy. Yi Guqin obtained 3 longevity fruits, which meant that his current results were far ahead of the geniuses of the aristocratic families. He could be said to be second to none. How could they tolerate this? The geniuses of the aristocratic families were definitely not willing to let Yi Guqin become the sword's son. Treasures belong to those who are capable. Why can't I keep what I obtained with my own abilities? Yi Guqin said calmly. He had already restrained himself by only obtaining 3 longevity fruits. If he fought openly, he could obtain at least 5 longevity fruits. If that's the case, then there's no other way. Hua Wuxiu took a step forward, and the light and shadow swords appeared in his hands. I didn't go all out during the 5 academies competition. Let's try again now. As soon as Hua Wuxiu finished speaking, the light and shadow swords swept towards Yi Guqin. I have the same intention. Yi Guqin laughed heartily, without the slightest hint of fear. The 9-dragon thunder prison in his hands flipped, and the sword light illuminated the world, and thunder rumbled in the sky. The 2 geniuses once again engaged in a fierce battle. Watching the fierce battle between the 2, the geniuses of the other 3 dynasties were slightly shocked. These 2 are both geniuses of the same dynasty, and they're both extremely powerful. Fortunately, they're opponents, otherwise, we'd have a hard time, some of the geniuses of the other dynasties thought to themselves. Just as Yi Guqin and Hua Wuxiu were engaged in a fierce battle. In the distance, another figure walked over with a majestic gait. He held a bronze pagoda in his hand and wore a bronze mask on his face. He looked like a fiend god, and his aura was unparalleled. It was Jinkue. Beside him stood a few sword sons from the aristocratic family's camp. However, 2 of them, Sword 8 and Sword 12, did not appear. It seemed that they had died. Dugubai, I'll give you one more chance. Hand over the longevity fruit and submit to me. I can guarantee that when I become the true master of the Sword Dynasty, you'll be second only to me. Jinkue said loudly. He did admire Yi Guqin's natural sage aptitude. Seeing that Jinkue had arrived and said such words, Kenpo and the other sword sons' expressions changed. On their side, Jian Shisan and Jian Jinghong had not arrived. In your dreams, Yiguchen spat out coldly. As the sword demon of the generation, he was also a young sword grandmaster. How could he submit to someone else? All right, Gubai, I'll make you regret this. Jian Kuei's voice was cold as he raised the bronze pagoda in his hand. 81 flying swords soared into the air and formed a 9 lotus sword array as they charged towards Mu Xingzhu. This scene shocked everyone. They did not expect that Jian Kuei would attack Mu Xingzhu instead of Yiguchen. Even Mu Xingzhu herself did not react. When she came back to her senses, the 9-colored lotus sword formation had completely surrounded her and was about to kill her. Jian Kuei, you deserve to die. Yiguchen reacted and shouted angrily like a divine king. However, his opponent, Hua Wuxiu, had a sharp gaze and entangled Yiguchen, preventing him from escaping. The lotus sword formation came down to kill. Mu Xingzhu was about to die. Chapter 1060. Mu Xingzhu was a heaven pride of the divine dwelling stage. With the help of her special abilities, she might be able to put up a fight. However, Jian Kuei's attack was too sudden. Even Mu Xingzhu could not react in time. As for Kenpo, Xuanlian, Ling Yamoshu, and the others, they did not expect such a scene to occur and were not prepared at all. Yiguchen was entangled with Hua Wuxiu and was unable to extricate himself. Mu Xingzhu watched as the 9 lotus sword array pressed down and was about to kill her. At this moment, a graceful figure flashed and blocked in front of Mu Xingzhu. Autumn Maple Sword Dance. With a low roar, the sword chi that filled the sky transformed into maple leaves and scattered. A handsome young man with long blue hair stepped forward with a maple leaf sword in hand. It was Jiang Fengmian. Boom! As the sword chi collided, Jiang Fengmian's figure was blasted back and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. As the 5th on the sword list, Jiang Fengmian was indeed not weak. However, Jian Kuei was even stronger. This sudden rescue caused everyone to be a little stunned. In particular, the heaven prides of the Sword Dynasty's aristocratic families were even more puzzled and puzzled. Jiang Fengmian, what are you doing? Yin Zhu, Shangguan Jingshan, and the other heaven prides of the aristocratic families all roared angrily. Jiang Fengmian was a heaven pride of the Jiang clan and also a member of the aristocratic family camp. However, at this moment, he actually helped the heaven prides of the unaffiliated cultivators. Let alone the heaven prides of the aristocratic families, even the Divine Cliff and Tianxian College were somewhat surprised. Jiang Fengmian. Mu Xingzhu bit her lip and hesitated. During the 5 Academies tournament, Jiang Fengmian had no choice but to attack Yiguchen. At that time, Mu Xingzhu misunderstood him and thought that he was a hypocrite. However, in the face of Jian Kuei's fatal attack, Jiang Fengmian immediately stepped forward to stop it. There was only one reason why he reacted so quickly. Jiang Fengmian had always been paying attention to Mu Xingzhu's situation. Therefore, when Jian Kuei suddenly attacked Mu Xingzhu, Jiang Fengmian immediately came to her rescue. From this, it could be seen that Jiang Fengmian's feelings for Mu Xingzhu were sincere, unlike Shangguan Jingshan, who only wanted to possess her. Jiang Fengmian, do you know the consequences of disobeying me? Jian Kuei was furious that he couldn't kill Mu Xingzhu in one blow. In his opinion, no one on the aristocratic family's side dared to disobey him. Sorry, I can't sit back and watch Miss Mu die in front of me. Jiang Fengmian's blue hair fluttered in the wind. He held the maple leaf sword in his hand and looked calm. For the love of his heart, he was fearless even in the face of Jian Kuei. This scene made Mu Xingzhu's beautiful eyes reveal a complicated expression. She was very grateful for Jiang Fengmian's help and was even a little touched. However, unfortunately, there was already a figure engraved in her heart. Well, in that case, you can die in her place. Jian Kuei attacked again. When Kenpo and the others saw this, they also stepped forward. Jian Kuei, we're not just going to sit around and do nothing. Kenpo, Jian Shi, Suki Miyazaki, Xuanlian, Ling Yamoshu, and the others all stepped forward bravely. On the other side, besides Jiankui, Sword 2, Sword 3, Sword 4, and Sword 6 all attacked. Shengguan Jingshan, Yinju, and the other prodigies on the sword roll also attacked together. The battle royale between the prodigies began again. However, this time, it was a civil war between the Sword Dynasty. The prodigies of the other three dynasties sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight. They didn't interfere. Jiang Fengmian, since you've betrayed the aristocratic families, you can only die. Jiankui's true energy surged. 81 flying swords circled in the air and turned into a torrent of sword qi that bombarded Jiang Fengmian. Jiang Fengmian blocked with his sword, but he was once again blasted back and spat out a mouthful of blood. In the next instant, Jiankui attacked again. At that moment, Mu Xingzu's figure flashed. She used a sword technique and also collided with Jiankui's attack. She retreated and spat out a mouthful of red blood. "Miss Mu, hurry up and leave," Jiang Fengmian said anxiously. "Young Master Jiang, you're standing up for Xingzhu. How can I leave alone? Let's join forces and fight this Jiankui." A bright smile appeared on Mu Xingzu's beautiful face. This smile caused Jiang Fengmian to become slightly absent-minded. You're courting death." Jiankui snorted coldly and attacked again. Mu Xingzu and Jiang Fengmian resisted with difficulty and were once again severely injured. On the other side, Yiguchen was firmly held back by Hua Wuxiu and couldn't free himself. However, Yiguchen's desire to kill Jiankui skyrocketed. It had already reached the point where he wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Mu Xingzhu was his disciple. After all, she was like a family member to him. Yiguchen wouldn't allow anyone to threaten Mu Xingzhu. "Hua Wuxiu, you and Jiankui have completely angered me." Yiguchen's tone was as cold as an ice abyss. Using Mu Xingzhu's life as a threat had already crossed his bottom line. The world only cares about those who succeed. They don't care about how they succeeded. Yiguchen, the Holy Dynasty's treasure will be your burial ground. Hua Wuxiu's expression was cold. He didn't need to risk his life to fight Yiguchen now. He only needed to hold him back, and Jiankui would naturally take care of Mu Xingzhu, Jiang Fengmian, and the others. As time passed, Mu Xingzhu and Jiang Fengmian were severely injured. Kenpo, Jianxi, Xuanlian, Ling Yimoshu, and the others were also injured to varying degrees. After all, besides Jiankui, their opponents were also Sword 2, Sword 3, Sword 10, Sword 6, and other Sword Sons. The situation was extremely unfavorable for the rogue cultivators. Die! Jiankui controlled the 81 flying swords to form a huge sword formation vortex and charged toward Jiang Fengmian and Mu Xingzhu. "Get out of the way!" Jiang Fengmian pushed Mu Xingzhu away and took the attack alone. With a thud, Jiang Fengmian fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. "Young Master Jiang." The prodigies on the rogue cultivator's side, including Mu Xingzhu, couldn't help but exclaim, "It's your turn now." Jiankui controlled the lotus sword formation again and charged toward Mu Xingzhu. At this critical juncture, a blood-red murderous sword ray pierced through the air and broke Jiankui's attack. Jiankui's gaze shifted. Jianxi was pleasantly surprised when he saw that. "It's little 13. A group of people approached from a short distance away. The leader was dressed in a gray robe and wore a ghost mask. He held the bloodbath sword in his hand. It was Jian Shisan. Beside him stood Jian Wu, Seventh Sword, and Jian Jinghong. "You're bullying the rogue cultivators when we're not around. Jiankui, is this all you've got?" Jian Jinghong taunted. Jiankui snorted and stopped attacking. With the arrival of Jian Jinghong and Jian Shisan, Jiankui could no longer threaten Mu Xingzhu and the others, let alone snatch the longevity fruit from Yiguchen. Yiguchen and Hua Wuxiu also stopped attacking after their clash. Seeing the arrival of the prodigies from the Sword Dynasty, the prodigies from the other three dynasties also looked wary. Without any hesitation, they dispersed and left the area to search for other opportunities. After the other prodigies left, only the prodigies from the Sword Dynasty remained around the longevity ancient tree. "Jiankui, I don't care who you are under that mask. But you will pay the price." Yi Guchen pointed his sword at Jian Kuei, his voice as cold as ice. Chapter 1061. Yi Guchen was filled with murderous intent towards Jian Kuei's actions. Seeing Yi Guchen's attitude, the Sword Dynasty's sky prides all fell silent. They never thought that Yi Guchen would dare to provoke Jian Kuei like this. What kind of existence was Jian Kuei? He was someone who stood at the pinnacle of the Sword Dynasty's sky prides. The number of sky prides who were qualified to be Jian Kuei's opponent could be counted on one hand. He, Dugubai, I will make you despair, but not now. Cherish your last moments. Jian Kuei sneered and turned to leave. Now, the most important thing in the Sacred Dynasty's inheritance was to search for opportunities. If Jian Kuei were to attack Yi Guchen now, Jian Jinghong, Jian Shisan, and the others would naturally not sit idly by. When that time came, it would definitely be a long and messy battle that would last for a long time. And now, what they lacked the most was time. If they were to fight here, they would only be giving away the opportunities to the sky prides of the other three dynasties. Yi Guchen also thought of this. He suppressed the surging murderous intent in his heart and watched as Jian Kuei and the others left. Dugubai, you and I will also fight it out in this Sacred Dynasty's inheritance. Hua Wuxiu took a deep look at Yi Guchen, then left with Jian Kuei. Only when the sky prides of the aristocratic families had all left, did the people present let out a sigh of relief. All of them had suffered serious injuries. Young Master Jianghe. At that moment, Mu Xingzu landed beside Jiang Fengyan and called out while biting her pink lips. Yi Guchen also flashed to Jiang Fengyan's side, and his expression turned serious. Jiang Fengyan's blue robe was stained with blood, and he was unconscious. His breathing had almost stopped, and it seemed that he would die soon. Master, do you have any way to save young Master Jiang? Mu Xingzu asked hesitantly. Jiang Fengyan had fought for her and suffered serious injuries. He was about to die, so Mu Xingzu couldn't just sit by and watch. Yi Guchen nodded slightly and said, since he risked his life to save you, I naturally can't abandon him. Some of the surrounding sky prides also gathered around. Although Jiang Fengyan was a prodigy from the aristocratic families, he was different from Yin Ju and the others. He had never deliberately antagonized prodigies from the itinerant cultivator camp. His personality was also quite gentle. Moreover, now that he had stood up for Mu Xingzu, no one could find any fault with him. If possible, the itinerant cultivator prodigies present also didn't want Jiang Fengyan to die. Actually, it's very simple to save Jiang Fengyan, Yi Guchen said as he flipped his hand and took out a jade-green fruit that contained rich vitality energy. It was the longevity fruit that he had obtained not long ago. Master, this is too precious. How can I let you spend so much money on it? Mu Xingzu said when she saw that. The other prodigies were also stunned when they saw Yi Guchen's actions. They thought that Yi Guchen would take out some kind of pill to save Jiang Fengyan. They didn't expect him to take out a longevity fruit directly. The longevity fruit's value was unquestionable. Whether it was used to exchange for the Sword Sun's points or as a life-saving item, it was definitely precious. It could be said that if it were anyone else, they might not have the courage to offer up a longevity fruit. Master, use mine. Mu Xingzu also wanted to take out a longevity fruit that she had obtained. Say no more. You all only have one longevity fruit, but I have 3. It's no big deal to take out one. Yi Guchen waved his hand and didn't seem to mind at all. Yi Guchen didn't really need the longevity fruit because the healing power of the ancient god's heart was no less than that of the longevity fruit. Therefore, the longevity fruit was only useful for Yi Guchen to exchange for the Sword Sun's points. In addition, he had 3 longevity fruits. It was no big deal to take out one. In fact, he could even win over a companion. Yi Guchen made up his mind and directly placed the longevity fruit into Jiang Fengyan's mouth. Not long after, the wounds on Jiang Fengyan's body began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, Jiang Fengyan trembled as he opened his eyes. I'm still alive? Jiang Fengyan was in a daze. He felt as if he was in a dream. Master used the longevity fruit to save you. A sweet voice with a hint of joy could be heard. Jiang Fengmian looked over and saw Mu Xingzhu, Yi Guchen, and the others surrounding him. The longevity fruit. Brother Dugu, you actually... Jiang Fengmian had a complicated expression on his face. Strictly speaking, they were on opposite sides. Jiang Fengmian didn't expect Yi Guchen to use a precious longevity fruit to save him. There's no need to say any more. Xingzhu is indebted to you. As her master, I should be the one thanking you, Yi Guchen said with a faint smile. Thank you. However, you have to be careful this time. Jian Kuei and the others definitely won't let you off so easily. The Heavenly Sentiment Alliance and the others might also be in danger, Jiang Fengmian said. He also shared some of the information he knew with everyone present. However, Jiang Fengmian didn't participate in the fake sage family's plan. Therefore, he didn't know much. No matter what, we have to deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo. Our priority is still to search for opportunities. Those who were injured just now should recuperate by the longevity ancient tree. Once they've recovered, we'll search for opportunities, Yi Guchen said. That's right. Our priority is to search for opportunities. Jian Jinghong and the others nodded in agreement. Kenpo and Jian Shi's expressions changed as they looked at Jian Shisan. They wanted to ask something, but in the end, they couldn't open their mouths. They believed that Jian Shisan must have been slandered by the people from the fake sage family. If they were to ask now, wouldn't it mean that they didn't trust Jian Shisan? After that, Yi Guchen, Jian Jinghong, Jian Shisan, Kenpo, and the others continued to search for opportunities. The remaining injured Sky Prides stayed where they were to recuperate. After they recovered, they would continue to explore deeper. Xingzhu, remember, staying alive is the most important thing. If you encounter any danger, leave as soon as possible. Do you understand? I can't always be by your side to protect you, Yi Guchen reminded her one last time. Xingzhu understands. Sensing the concern in Yi Guchen's words, Mu Xingzhu blushed slightly. After that, Yi Guchen and the others left. When Jiang Fengmian saw this, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. Young Master Jiang, how are your injuries? Mu Xingzhu went up to him with concern. I'm fine, Miss Mu. I finally understand why you don't care about me and Shangguan Jingshan. Jiang Fengmian smiled bitterly. Young Master Jiang, you're a good person, Mu Xingzhu said as she bit her lip. I understand now, Miss Mu. If I were you, I would have been tempted to have such a master. Jiang Fengmian smiled and joked. What are you talking about? Mu Xingzhu's face turned even redder when her thoughts were seen through. Indeed, Yi Guchen's figure had been deeply engraved in her heart. It was impossible to erase it. No other man could replace Yi Guchen's position in Mu Xingzhu's heart. Even Jiang Fengmian, who had risked his life to save her, couldn't. Mu Xingzhu knew that Yi Guchen only had a master-disciple relationship with her, but this already made Mu Xingzhu very satisfied and happy. She didn't dare to ask for more. Jiang Fengmian also understood Mu Xingzhu's thoughts and completely untied the knot in his heart. Even if he couldn't be Mu Xingzhu's cultivation partner, it would be good to be friends. Moreover, Yi Guchen's rescue had completely won Jiang Fengmian's heart. Brother Dugu, since you saved my life, I should return the favor and persuade my father to help the rogue cultivators, Jiang Fengmian said to himself. His father was Jiang Wen, the head of the Jiang family, one of the 5 great pseudo-saint families. And this time, the person who came to the sacred dynasty's treasure was the deputy head of the Jiang family, Jiang Wen's younger brother, Jiang Wu. Perhaps even Yi Guchen himself didn't expect this. He saved Jiang Fengmian's life, which might cause the entire Jiang family to change their camp and attitude. Because Jiang Wen valued his son, Jiang Fengmian, the most. Chapter 1062. While Jiang Fengmian, Mu Xingzhu, and the others were resting under the longevity ancient tree, Yi Guchen, Kenpo, Jian Jinghong, Jian Shisan, and the others continued their exploration. The sacred dynasty's inheritance is huge, and there are many opportunities. I suggest we split up and search for opportunities on our own. That way, the chances of success will be higher, Jian Jinghong said. That's right. Although it's safe for us to move together, the opportunities we find won't be enough for us to split evenly. Since we've come to the sacred dynasty's inheritance, it's impossible not to take some risks. Yi Guchen nodded in agreement. All right, if that's the case, let's split up. Kenpo also nodded. Jian Shisan held the bloodbath sword in his hand. He didn't say anything, but he nodded in agreement. Then, the group began to split up, heading in different directions. Before Yi Guchen left, he took a deep look at Jian Shisan. What kind of face was hidden under that grimacing mask? Was Jian Shisan the one who killed Jian Shisan? Was Jian Shisan a spy from the aristocratic families? Kenpo and Jianxi had already concluded that it was the aristocratic families who were trying to sow discord. But Yi Guchen felt that it wasn't that simple. Jian Shisan was also a man with a story. But no matter what, since Kenpo and Jianxi didn't question him, Yi Guchen naturally didn't have the right to question him. After that, Yi Guchen also left alone. The sacred dynasty's inheritance was huge. There were all kinds of dilapidated palaces scattered around. Yi Guchen was also searching among the ruins. Now that the opponents are getting stronger, I have to break through as soon as possible. Yi Guchen thought to himself as he moved. His current strength was indeed not weak. Yi Guchen was absolutely confident that he could kill Gu Xiaoyang if he were to fight him again. Of course, as the genius of the Starry Sword Pavilion, Gu Xiaoyang would not remain stagnant. It could be said that if Yi Guchen used the heaven-devouring secret technique, his strength was enough to fight against some heaven prides of the third layer of the divine dwelling realm. However, secret techniques were secret techniques after all. There was still a difference between raising one's combat power through secret techniques and raising one's cultivation base. Moreover, Jian Kuei's strength was also unfathomable. Not to mention, there was also Purple, who was ranked first on the sword leaderboard. Yi Guchen did not believe that the mysterious genius would miss the battle of geniuses. Therefore, Yi Guchen felt a sense of crisis. I need to ascend to the divine dwelling stage as soon as possible. At the same time, I can also practice the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra again, Yi Guchen muttered to himself. If his strength rose to the divine dwelling stage, then he could cultivate the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra. Yi Guchen's strength would soar again. At that time, he would have a place in the battle of geniuses. And now, the opportunity that was most likely to raise Yi Guchen's cultivation base was naturally in the sacred dynasty's treasure trove. Yi Guchen made a decision and began to search again. After about half an hour, Yi Guchen vaguely sensed a strong and pure spirit chi fluctuation in front of him. Sensing this fluctuation, Yi Guchen's eyes lit up. He withdrew his aura and flashed away. An ancient palace appeared in the ruins in front of him. On the plaque of the palace, 3 ancient words were written: Spirit Transformation Hall. There were many palaces in the sacred dynasty's treasure trove. Most of the palaces had collapsed, and there were no resources in them. But a small number of palaces were still intact because of incomplete formations. There may be unimaginable opportunities in them. Just when Yi Guchen was about to appear, suddenly he saw a guard in front of the palace. He was dressed in golden armor and held a golden spear in his hand. It was none other than Jean Bubi, who ranked 10th on the War God Dynasty's War God list. Jean Bubi had also appeared in the ancient Chaos Wasteland. At that time, Jean Bubi could give Yi Guchen some pressure. But now, Yi Guchen was not afraid at all. Jean Bubi did not go in to plunder, but guarded the door. Could there be? Yi Guchen immediately thought of a person. The War God Dynasty's little princess, Zhao Xiaodi. Perhaps only Zhao Xiaodi was qualified to make Jean Bubi a guard. Since Jean Bubi is guarding outside, there must be a rare opportunity in the Spirit Transformation Hall. Yi Guchen thought. He did not alert Jean Bubi, but withdrew his aura and took a detour to explore from the back of the palace. There are formations. Yi Guchen finally understood why Jean Bubi was only guarding the door. Because in the Spirit Transformation Hall, except for the formation at the door, there were still formations left in the other places. But after the passage of time, the power of these formations had greatly decreased and become very fragile. Given Yi Guchen's understanding of formations, he quickly and quietly cracked the formations. He used so close, yet worlds apart, and entered from the back of the spirit transformation hall in a flash. As soon as he entered the hall, Yiguchen saw that there were many jade bottles stored in the compartments of the hall. Yiguchen opened one of the jade bottles, and a strong and pure spirit chi rushed out. What pure spirit chi? These pills are all pills to help improve one's cultivation. Yiguchen's eyes lit up, although he had received a lot of resources from Sacred Cliff College. But if he wanted to improve his cultivation level, he needed even more resources. Soon, Yiguchen had plundered all the pills in the several compartments. It's not enough, Yiguchen murmured. These pills could, at most, improve his cultivation level by a small level. But what Yiguchen wanted to do was to break through to the divine dwelling stage. Oh, that's right. The vigorous spiritual aura that I felt outside wasn't emitted by these elixirs. Yiguchen thought about it. In his perception, the strong spirit chi was located at the center of the spirit transformation hall. Yiguchen did not hesitate and continued to rush in. But before he even got close to the center, waves of strong spirit chi rushed at him. Taking a deep breath was equivalent to taking a pill. Yiguchen suppressed his presence and quietly approached. The front suddenly opened up to an ancient hall. In the center of the hall was a pool. No, it should not be called a pool, but a spirit liquid pool, because it was filled with rich, milky white spirit liquid. On the ground, the words, Spirit Transformation Pool, were carved. This spirit transformation pool must be the greatest opportunity of the spirit transformation hall. Moreover, there was a formation operating at the edge of the spirit transformation pool, which prevented the spirit liquid in the spirit transformation pool from dissipating over time. With the spirit liquid accumulated in the spirit transformation pool over a long period of time, together with the pills I obtained before and some resources in my origin ring, I might be able to break through to the divine dwelling stage. Yiguchen's heart trembled. This spirit transformation pool was his greatest opportunity to break through to the divine dwelling stage. However, just as Yiguchen was about to dash out, bubbles suddenly appeared on the surface of the pool. Immediately, a little mermaid-like figure poked her head out. The girl was delicate and charming, with a head of moist, jet-black hair. Her body was petite and sparkling like jade. Her skin was extremely soft and milky white. It's so comfortable. The girl flicked her hair and grinned. Her two small canine teeth added to her cuteness and playfulness. This girl was the little princess of the War God Empire, the girl with monstrous strength, Zhao Xiaodi. Chapter 1063. This, even with Yiguchen's personality, he was slightly stunned. It was not because of the scene of Zhao Xiaodi coming out of the bath. It was because this was the spiritual pool. A great opportunity that could help people break through their cultivation level was used by Zhao Xiaodi as a bathing pool. This was absolutely a waste of God's gift. Even Yiguchen felt like his heart was bleeding. Even so, Yiguchen did not plan to give up. He had to obtain the opportunity in the spiritual pool to break through his cultivation level. After making up his mind, Yiguchen's eyes narrowed and he flashed out. Yiguchen reached out and directly suppressed Zhao Xiaodi. He had no grudge against Zhao Xiaodi, and Zhao Xiaodi was just a budding girl and the little princess of the War God dynasty. Therefore, Yiguchen did not plan to hurt her. He only reached out to suppress her. But who is it? Zhao Xiaodi, who was enjoying the bath, jumped up like a frightened quail. She turned her beautiful eyes and saw Yiguchen coming to suppress her. It's you, the born Saint de Gubai. You're still alive? Zhao Xiaodi's little face was filled with shock. Back in the Thousand Demon Nest Mountain range, she saw Yiguchen being attacked by Chao Hu with her own eyes. After that, in the Sacred Dynasty's treasure, Zhao Xiaodi did not meet Yiguchen. She also did not go to the Longevity Ancient Tree, so she did not know anything about Yiguchen. Now that she saw Yiguchen appear, she was naturally a little shocked. However, after the shock, she was extremely embarrassed, because her entire body was clean and smooth. However, Yiguchen clearly did not have any other intentions. He just wanted to suppress Zhao Xiaodi so that she would not resist. Your Highness, I'm sorry to offend you. I just need to use the spiritual pool. Yi Guchen's arm locked Zhao Xiaodi's delicate body, trying to suppress her first. Zhao Xiaodi's face flushed red as she screamed in anger and embarrassment. Duguwubai, you big bastard, you big pig trotter. Zhao Xiaodi's delicate body trembled as a monstrous force spread out. Even Yi Guchen was slightly startled. He felt as if a savage beast was struggling in his arms. Without any hesitation, Yi Guchen used his ancient god body. Vigorous ancient god power surged and locked Zhao Xiaodi's movements. How is this possible? Your power? Zhao Xiaodi realized that she couldn't break free from Yi Guchen's restraints. After all, she was an 8th-rank prodigy with a special bloodline. Her strength was unparalleled. In terms of strength, Zhao Xiaodi had never been afraid of anyone. But now, she was being suppressed by Yi Guchen in terms of power. Zhao Xiaodi naturally did not know that Yi Guchen cultivated the ancient god tactics and was the inheritor of the ancient god clan. Even among the 100 ancient clans in the universe, there were few clans that could surpass the ancient god clan in terms of strength. Therefore, it was not surprising that Zhao Xiaodi was suppressed by Yi Guchen in terms of strength. Zhao Xiaodi struggled violently, but she couldn't break free from Yi Guchen's suppression. Instead, because of her struggle, she had a strange feeling. Your Highness, what's the matter? Just then, Zhang Bubi's voice came from the palace entrance. He heard Zhao Xiaodi's cry and asked, Do you really want to let Zhang Bubi in now? Yi Guchen whispered into Zhao Xiaodi's ear. Zhao Xiaodi's face turned red. If Zhang Bubi came in and saw such an unbearable scene, Zhao Xiaodi would definitely want to die. No, nothing. Without my permission, don't come in. Zhao Xiaodi hurriedly shouted. Got it. At the palace entrance, Zhang Bubi shrugged and continued to guard outside. Okay, bad guy, what do you want? Zhao Xiaodi's face was red, embarrassed and angry. I said, I just want to use the spiritual pool to make a breakthrough, Yi Guchen said indifferently. Okay, I'll give it to you. Can you let go of me now? Zhao Xiaodi gritted her teeth. Sorry, but just in case, I can only seal your cultivation for now. Don't worry, I'll release you after I make a breakthrough. Yi Guchen continued to restrain Zhao Xiaodi with one hand and put the other hand on Zhao Xiaodi's flat, snow-white abdomen to temporarily seal her spiritual abode. I'll kill you. As the little princess of the War God Empire, Zhao Xiaodi had never been wronged like this. She glared at Yi Guchen and raised her eyebrows. She opened her mouth to reveal her silver teeth and 2 shiny canine teeth. Then, she bit Yi Guchen's arm hard. However, Yi Guchen immediately activated the flawless body of Vajra. With the help of the ancient god body, his arm glowed with a faint purple-gold color. Zhao Xiaodi bit down and immediately cried out in pain. My teeth! Zhao Xiaodi pursed her pink lips and teared up. She felt that her teeth were about to fall out. Woo, bad guy, I'm going to tell my father, I'm going to tell my brother. They'll definitely kill you, woo. Zhao Xiaodi started to cry, feeling wronged. Her tears dripped down. After making sure that Zhao Xiaodi couldn't break free in a short time, Yi Guchen also let go of Zhao Xiaodi. Zhao Xiaodi immediately took out a dress from her origin ring and put it on. Finally, she wasn't naked. Then, she stopped crying and glared at Yi Guchen like a little tigress. Sorry, Your Highness, before I make a breakthrough, you'll have to stay here. Yi Guchen sat cross-legged in the spiritual pool and prepared to make a breakthrough. He wasn't worried that Zhao Xiaodi would cause trouble. Zhao Xiaodi didn't have much power in a short time since her divine dwellings were sealed. After he was ready, Yi Guchen also sat cross-legged in the spiritual pool and began to make a breakthrough. Dugubai, you pig trotter, how dare you use this princess's bathwater to make a breakthrough? This princess will curse you to never make a breakthrough. Zhao Xiaodi's face was full of resentment. Obviously, she wanted to affect Yi Guchen with her words. But with Yi Guchen's temperament, how could he be affected by Zhao Xiaodi's words? He secretly guided the devouring power in his body. In an instant, Yi Guchen's entire body seemed to have turned into a black hole. He greedily devoured and refined the spiritual liquid in the spiritual pool like a whale. Yi Guqin's cultivation base also rose as a result of the refinement, just as Yi Guqin was concentrating on cultivating. However, Zhao Xiaodi's eyes were rolling around. On one hand, she was secretly attacking the divine dwelling's seal set by Yi Guqin. On the other hand, she was secretly sending a message to another person. Although Zhao Xiaodi had always been disgusted by that person's pursuit. But now, it seemed to be a good choice to let him deal with the hateful guy in front of her. In another palace ruin in the Sacred Empire's treasure trove, a handsome young man dressed in a brocade robe, wearing a golden crown on his head and holding a golden folding fan in his hand, was plundering opportunities. He was a false saint expert of the war god empire, the son of the heroic Marquis. He was ranked 7th on the war god list and was known as the heroic Marquis. His name was Zhong Shan. At this moment, Zhong Shan received a message, and his handsome face instantly lit up with joy. Her Highness sent me a message. Zhong Shan was overjoyed. He had been pursuing Zhao Xiaodi, but there had been no results. However, when he saw the content of the message, Zhong Shan's face instantly lit up with anger. Damn it, that damn Dugubai, a trash who isn't even at the divine dwelling stage, dares to provoke the little princess. Wait for me to teach him a lesson. Although Zhong Shan had heard some rumors about Yi Guqin, he always felt that it was a false rumor and could not be taken seriously. He closed the folding fan in his hand with a snap, and his figure turned into a stream of light and sped away. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.